It's another beautiful Monday. Welcome aboard the AM show. You know what we do? We serve you the finest on morning television. From us to you, welcome aboard. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Today, and in the course of the week, I'm going to be doing this together with Mapitso Sibedi. Now, we'll be serving you the news shortly, and right after that, we get into our news review. We'll be joined by educationist and country director, International Child Development Program, Joyce Lanyo. She'll be joining us for breakfast. But then we get into our big stories, our big story, so to speak. Former Director General and Rector of GIMPA, Professor Stephen Adey, says his revolutionary strategy towards transforming the poor performance of public basic schools in Ghana is to simply sack all the teaching staff. He notes that the lack of active supervision in public basic schools has resulted in highly qualified teachers not pulling their weight to ensure that students excel in their various subjects. Well, we discuss this together with Professor George Odro, Professor of Educational Leadership, UNESCO Institute for Educational Planning and Administration. We'll also be joined by former Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, and we'll also have Dr. Peter Anti, Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies, and a lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. Also joining the conversation, Reverend Isaac Owusu, the NAT President. But also on the show, the Ghana Football Association has appointed Chris Hughton to be the new head coach of the Black Stars following extensive deliberations between the two parties. The decision to appoint Hughton comes following the resignation of Otto Addo as the team's head coach after Ghana's exit from the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. We'll be taking a look at those dynamics, and Muftau Nabila Abdullahi will host former Black Stars player Laia Kingston and coach J.E. Sapon on that self-important matter. But it's a Monday, the start of a new week. How about giving you a tip so you can drive safe? Especially important looking at the carnage on our roads. Join us later on the show for this week's Drive Safe tip. But as always, at the tail end, and in fact in the course of the show, we offer you the opportunity of sharing your thoughts with us, because it also helps us know whether we are delivering what you desire. So share with us with the hashtag AM show in the course of the show, and at the tail end when we activate the phone lines, be sure to give us a call. Up next, the news on the AM show. Do stay. Welcome to the news now. And in our first story, Vice Chancellor of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Professor Akosua Dixon, wants more women included in policy formulation and implementation. She believes it is the best way to realize the SDG Goal 5, which seeks to promote gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. Professor Dixon was speaking as part of activities to mark the 2023 International Day of Women and Girls in Science.
Globally, women make up about 28% of the workforce in science, technology, engineering, and math, and men vastly outnumber women, majoring in most STEM fields. Speaking on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of KNUST, Professor Mariana Santo Ankansa stressed the inclusion of women in decision-making.
It's been almost a decade since the International Day for Women and Girls in Science was instituted. This is the 8th edition, and most of the themes have rallied around conversations which is meant to better the lot of women, if I should say so, particularly focusing on SDG 5. And some gains have been made, but I believe there's still room for more, and that is why every year we gather to have this conversation.
The 8th International Day of Women and Girls in Science aims to bridge the international community and women in science by linking their knowledge and expertise and its applications in a systematic, critical way for the 2020 Agenda and its 17 global goals. The African Institute for Mathematical Sciences, AIMS Ghana, and its partners held the forum across 3 major university campuses in Ghana to commemorate the 2023 International Day of Women and Girls in Science. The event was held simultaneously at the University of Ghana, Legon, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and the University of Development Studies. It was under the theme, bring everyone forward for sustainable and equitable development through ideas. The Kumasi Center focused on mentorship. The event is sponsored by the Henry Lewis Foundation and partnered with the UN in Ghana and UNESCO. AIMS Women in STEM, Wisdom GH, and KTCSR UDS were organizers. Dr. Mrs. Bedu of Wisdom GH stressed the need to project the achievement of women in science through mentorship.
Our mentors, the experiences they shared with us, and I think it has been a huge success. That is what we want. I mean, we can continuously talk about mentoring the young lady, mentoring women in science, mentoring girls in science, but this is the time we need to project the achievement. So you realize that if they are innovative, they have to demonstrate their innovations. When they demonstrate their innovations, it has to be advanced.
Director of Planning and Quality Assurance at the Kumasi Technical University, Professor Abana Obriabwa, called for ways of resolving mentor-mentee conflicts.
At the end of the day, you want to achieve goals. And if that mentor is not going to help you, I think that the right thing to do is to end the relationship. And when I say end the relationship, I don't mean that pick up your phone, call the person, insult the person and say, I don't want you. Because you never know where you are going to meet that person again.
A senior research scientist at the Forestry Research Institute, Dr. Mrs. Gloria Jablete, encouraged mentees to approach potential mentors.
Sometimes you just sit back, you see somebody, the way the one organize his or her things, the way the one carries himself or herself, you can decide to just move closer to test the waters, to see whether that place to be an appropriate area for mentorship for you or not.
Some of the students spoke with JoyNews.
And as a woman too, there is no limitation to you. The sky is not even a limitation.
Upon hearing what was taught to me today, I've now realized that there are certain things that I need to do. And then also, I think we should never give up with whatever we want to do. The great impacts our great leaders have made on our lives. I can boast today that I don't fear science and all.
I also learned mentorship is not, it's just a guide, but it's not a teaching exercise.
Now, David Ni Bokete, an amputee father of 3, has developed his own way of hawking in the streets to earn some money to cater for his family. He says rather than being pitied and given a handout because of his physical disability, he wants to be a leading water distributor in the country. There's more in this report.
Quite an unusual scene. A man in crutches chasing after a truck to sell to his customers. Meet David Bokete. He does not want to be pitied and given a handout because of his physical disability. David says he hustles daily to put food on the table for his family and also to teach his children to own up to their responsibility as they grow up. He lost his leg when he was 5 years old. David says a government hospital in Accra injected him with the wrong dose of medication and his leg stopped functioning.
It happened at the age of 5, when I was at the age of 5 at 37 Military Hospital. I was not feeling fine and my parents took me to the hospital to take some medication. But long run, the injection they gave me was a wrong injection and this caused a damage to the leg. Because my dad was like, it happens that happens, at least there's life and there's always hope.
He battled discrimination from his childhood. He recalled that his mates mocked him. But that has not changed as he endures several forms of discrimination, including being refused job offers because of his disability. When he finished senior secondary school, he started selling phone chargers and other accessories in the Accra Central Business District until he decided to hawk water in traffic.
It has not been easy at all with this situation. A lot of discrimination everywhere. Even in my own family, there were a lot of discrimination. But with hope and with a strong mind, I was able to overcome it one by one. After my secondary school, I sold in Mokola. I sold false clothes. I sell for some people like phone chargers, phone accessories. Then at the end of the day, I return the sales back to them. But it got to a point, I got a job, which I have to leave those things. But when COVID-19 came in, we were all laid off from the job. I was looking for a job after the COVID. And I went to this company to look for a job. And the security man told me that they don't employ disability in their company. I felt so bad that day, I was crying. And I said, what can I do to make people believe in disabilities, that we have the strength in us? So I went back home, I started thinking over it. So the thought of bottled water came into my mind that people drink water every day. There's no day that nobody cannot drink water. So how am I going to sell this water outside there?
He's doing good. He's forcing. If the car is going cry, he's forcing to chase the car. Yes, today cry, he was fighting with one of us here. That's the customer call him. It's not the one.
His customers, who have become friends, say they love his zeal for work and that he doesn't beg for a living.
He's a hard-working guy. He said this bottle, he said like 2 years now. By that time he was not here. He was selling at the under bridge. But he came here like 6 months now. He's a hard-working guy.
But looking at David, Sebi, Nenayecha. Now Shahun can what traffic with the crutches. Now tones you know. In fact, me office saying your dispenser you use it. But sometimes I just feel like me in channel maybe 3 CDs and now 5 CDs. But minim says me tones you ni ba kukra at least obenya profit room.
Now, Ghana and India have partnered to develop and enhance the growth of agriculture, especially the development and consumption of pulse grains. A Deputy Minister of Food and Agriculture, Frimpong Addo, says Ghana is strategically positioned climatically to promote the food crop production. Richard Kwejonyako has more in the following report.
The 2023 World Pulses Day underlines the significance of pulses in fostering equity and generating chances for livelihood, both of which are essential elements of sustainable agri-food systems. Pulses are said to have a lower water footprint than other food crops and are better able to withstand drought and climate-related calamities, making them a crucial tool for adjusting to and reducing climate change. They also help farmers in water-scarce regions have a better quality of life. Pulse grains like dry beans, dry broad beans, dry peas, cowpeas, pigeon peas, bambara beans and others are expected to be championed to give nutritional value to Ghanaians. Speaking at the ceremony, Deputy Minister for Food and Agriculture, Frimpong Addo, underscored the need for a stronger partnership between Ghana and India to develop and grow the pulse grains.
The ministry is full of support for the celebration of this day and for all the initiatives that we are putting in place to see to it that we have nutritional balance in our diet. It's supported by policy, and this is what I'm talking about, practical policy in the planting for food and jobs. The ministry is fully behind every effort to push this, the promotion of the consumption of these pulses in this country to the maximum. Indian Africa Trade Council, this is a special body to promote the friendship between Ghana and India. From where I'm coming, agriculture, it is of great significance to acknowledge that India is supporting Ghana in our agriculture drive, and therefore we welcome this council and call for closer collaboration between India and Ghana, especially in the area of food crop production.
From an economic standpoint, the global pulses industry, which deals with the production and trade of pulses, also demonstrate to be a beneficial force in ensuring the stability of regional and global supply chain and enable consumers to access wholesome foods. Chairman for the Central and West Africa Indian-Africa Trade Council, Dr. James Rajamani, says India is working hard to sustain the relationship between India and Ghana, especially in the field of agric.
But while we are celebrating this important occasion, it is very important to see in the context that the old and close relations that we have between our two countries, India and Ghana, are actually based on such sustainable, long-term, national developmental premises. From day one, we joined hands with each other to see that we not only develop the national institutions of ours, but at the same time, we commit ourselves to build our capacities. And this is the basis of India's engagement with Africa, and not just Ghana. We are happy to see that when we are highlighting this particular sector in the vertical of agriculture and rural development today, that essence of our bilateral bond between our two countries is being celebrated.
The theme for the 2023 World Pauses Day is Pauses for a Sustainable Future, which also underlines the significance of pauses in fostering equity and generating chances for livelihood. Reporting for JoyNews, Richard Kwejinyako, Accra.
And something to smile about, host of news analysis program News Files, Samson Ladi Anyenene, has been crowned the Best Journalist of the Year by the Millennium Excellence Foundation. The board of the foundation, under the auspices of the Asantehene Otumfuo Osei II, selected Mr. Anyenene for the award under its constitutional honors. Richard Kwejunyako reports again.
Let's welcome him as I invite Ambassador Martin to help.
It was a gathering of people who have contributed significantly to Ghana's constitutional democracy.
Not too long ago, when the Ghana Journalists Association decided to honor me for democracy and peace building, I spoke and said it was not anything I expected, because what I do out of passion.
Samson Ladi Anyenene was selected by the board of the Millennium Excellence Foundation as the 2022 Best Journalist of the Year under its constitutional honors.
I've been committed to what I do, and I will continue to commit to it for as long as there is a need to ensure social justice in our society.
Samson was part of the 19 award winners selected by the board for their various roles in protecting the sanctity of the 1992 Constitution.
I'm sure everybody here now has a Ghana card. Everything Ghana is Ghana card, the ECOWAS card, and he's the man who printed those cards. And that's why we see that he should be the man of the year. Arguably, he's the man of the year, and I'm sure everyone here believes that he should be the man of the year.
The executive chairman of the Margins Group of Companies, Moses Kwesi Baden, walked home with the coveted Man of the Year award.
I think from the explanation I got is because we've been around for a long time, 32 years. We've been evolving over the 32 years. And our projects that we've done over the 32 years have had great social, economic, and political significance. And the flagship project for which I guess the foundation thought deserved this award as a conceptualizing, the designing, the building, the finance, and the cooperation of the National ID system and the Ghana card with the National Identification Authority, being the private partner of NIA in a public-private partnership, which involved manufacturing of a highly secure ID card by an African company in Ghana and Africa, being the first time in the world that such a secure card has been manufactured in Africa.
The Chief of Staff, Akosua Frema Osei-Opare, made the 19-member list of awardees. She was adjudged the Politician of the Year. Wichi, Kojanyako, Joy News, Accra.
Elias Ajite Enum, a victim of police brutality who was shot in the head in 2018 but miraculously survived, has died and finally been laid to rest. Ojo's wish was for the police to investigate and punish the perpetrator who shot him at Abokobi Akpoman when he tried to settle a dispute. In the sequel to JoyNews' documentary, As If We Weren't Human, features editor Jojo Kobina caught up with the widow, Deborah Ajile, who says she is looking up to God because the justice system has failed her.
The story of Elias Ojo Ajite Anum is bizarre. In May 2018, the police had a disagreement with Ojo's brother, so he tried settling the issue. Suddenly, one of the policemen's guns went off, sending a bullet from one side of his face to the other. Ojo survived but became paralyzed. He lost his speech and the nerves in his legs were also affected. Ojo almost lost all his memory. He could not remember his wife and children, but he said he could identify the policeman who shot him. He promised never to let go of the case, so he held on, but gave up in January 2023. His children mourn him for the last time. Ojo's wife, Deborah, says her tears are finished. She had been crying since 2018.
I don't know what to do to myself. No matter how you cry, or the person has gone already, so nothing else to do about it.
6 months before Ojo died, he could not remember his wife.
Sometimes he can't recognize me. He will be asking me, who am I? Then the next time, when I ask him, who am I will tell him that I'm his wife. But sometimes when you ask him, he said he don't know me. But sometimes when I ask him, he said I'm his wife. That's what we have been. So I've been introducing myself and asking him that maybe does he know that he have kids. This lady who he say is my kid, and this one too, they are my kids. And so sometimes when you ask him something, he reply to you, but sometimes he will never mind you.
Members of the Presbyterian Church Akpoman gathered to mourn the man who was part of them. The police had indeed dealt them a big blow. His 2 children who grew up not knowing their father. When JoyNews contacted the police before the airing of the documentary in 2018, they declined interviews. In 2019, some police officials visited Ojo, promising to investigate the issue, but they never did.
Peace be a baby, I'm a two. I'm a baby, and I got more quick with me. I'm Baslale. I'm a guy, I'm a Yashi, I'm Bana Moni Chatun, can boy say Banaba Tatun. And no say, near me come about. I may remember, for brother say, Mambi, I mean, Yamisa, still no go on.
Ojo lies in a casket and begins his journey to the unknown world. He is placed 6 feet down the earth.
Well, it is indeed a very tragic event here. Elias is finally being buried. But when he was alive, he had one wish. The wish was for police authorities to investigate and find the person who shot him, investigate and also punish the person. He's now gone, and his family are yearning for that justice, where the person who shot him is identified and given the required punishment.
The head of the family is calling on the police to give the family closure.
Through this your medium, I'm pleading with you. I'm pleading with you. I know how this our man, the IGP, Dampari, so I'm pleading through this your medium to help us find justice to our brother. That's all that I need from you. Please. Whatever you can assist to arrest this perpetrator who perpetrated this horrible incident. Look at him. My brother, I'm being short of words. So please, if you can also assist so that we can find the culprit who did this particular thing.
God is the person who's going to judge, not me. And not him, any human will judge him. It's God.
Jojo Kobner, JoyNews.
And on that pitiful note, we cap off the news this morning. But stay with us. The news review is up next on the AM show. Welcome back on the AM show, and I have the singular pleasure of giving you a lady clad in, let me check out the color. What color is this?
Pink.
Pink?
Yeah.
That's quite a shade of pink.
Yeah, it's a
lovely.
It's a dark pink. Yeah.
Mapito CBD.
Good morning,
Good
Benjamin.
to have you on the show.
Good to be here,
It's
Benjamin.
been a while.
It has been a while. It's a Monday morning. How was your weekend?
My weekend was a bit tiring, so at a point I had to do what we have to do.
Okay.
I didn't switch off my phones. I silenced them and threw them somewhere.
And
so I missed some
slept.
calls, even some from here, someone who wanted me to do something. But I just had to do that because you know how it is.
It's very necessary. Rest is very good.
Very important.
And I'm sure they found someone else to do it.
So it was a personal thing.
Okay.
And it's something that I
okay.
can still do for the person.
Okay.
So if my
that's
sleep
fine.
had been disturbed, I would have ended up with headaches and all of that. But thankfully, I got all the sleep I needed, woke up, and here I am.
Okay, that's
It's been
good.
a beautiful week. How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. I was with family. We had a barbecue. We swam. It was good. It was a good weekend. Like a very wholesome weekend. And then on Sunday we went to, there's a place in Kanda and they sell kenke. Yeah, it's like a kenke house. And then we had kenke and fish and then, yeah. It was a good week. It was a good weekend.
It's too early to get me salivating. Just yesterday, I watched this right before we get into the papers. This steak. So someone was looking at rind steak versus Wagyu steak. You know, the most expensive in the world. And I was just like, dude, throw me a slice.
So let me also,
Just let me
be part of the judges. Let me be part
good
of the
to have you.
judges.
We also joined. The AM News Review is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. We'll be telling you a bit more about them. They are offering free prostate screening and free female fertility screening. You can locate them in Accra Spintex opposite the Shell signboard in Kumasi, Krodoma, Buehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex in Takrade, Anaji Estate in Tema Community 22, in Techiman in Hanswa and Esiamanzima. Call them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Just pay them a visit. This morning, I have the Daily Graphic, Ghanaian Times, The Finder, and the Daily Statesman. What do you have?
I have the Daily Guide, Republic Press, the New Publisher, the Custodian, and the Ghanaian Publisher.
Let me also announce that we'll be joined on Zoom by educationist and country director, International Child Development Program, Joyce Lanyo. Madam Lanyo, a very good morning to you. If you can hear me, Madam Lanyo, good morning. Okay, we'll try to reconnect with her when the feed patches through. Okay, let's do this one last time. Madam Lanyo, a very good morning to you. Maybe you'd have to unmute. Hello? Madam Joyce Lanyo, a very good morning to you. All right, so we'll get back to her. The Daily Graphic this morning, and you know, one place that has been pretty turbulent in recent weeks with a lot of talk. Years have passed, decades in fact, with this conflict simmering, going on the low, and now it's resurging again. The Boku conflict. 27 pregnant women die over inability to access hospital. So this is a different angle to some of the challenges in that part of the country. But SHS freshers to report February the 20th. There's NAELP project, degraded lands restored. Residents appeal for expansion of program. I'll bring you some details of that. OSP charges for failure to declare incomes. And that is something, you know, you see a lot of people in Ghana riding X type of car and all of that. Yet, if you go into their salaries, you would wonder,
it doesn't make sense.
Are they able to do that? And oftentimes we don't ask any questions. They get the front row in churches and all of that.
Because they're sponsoring programs at the church.
Our hypocrisy right in our faces. We hail these people, and then later when it is proven that maybe they are doing something nefarious, oh, we didn't know, but
did you ask?
How did we think they were?
Did you ask?
You know what kills me? Parents. Some parents, you know, you have a child who is a teen or in the early 20s, and all of a sudden they have a Range Rover and all sorts of things, and you, the parent, they are
my child is doing well. Yeah. My prayers have been answered.
Have you asked yourself what exactly your child is doing?
He or she is probably like 23, changing cars, has iPhones. But you know what? I also, not that I understand, but like I get the parents. It's because it's like, this is my child and this is my hope. And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, we do care, but it's just like, oh, this is my hope. This is what I prayed for. So you don't really go into the details, or you just say that this is what I prayed for and God has done it for us.
When the consequences come, you realize that is exactly what your worst fear, and now it's coming to reality.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
it's unfortunate. But
let's check out some of these stories. So the National Land Reclamation Project rolled out by the government to restore lands degraded by illegal mining activities is receiving endorsement from residents of mining communities. The project, which is part of the National Alternative Employment and Livelihood Program, that is the NAELP, under the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, is targeted mainly at degraded lands that straddle water bodies, with the ultimate aim of restoring the lands while breathing a new lease of life into rivers. Adopting community participation, the reclamation project started in the last quarter of last year, with 1,000 hectares of degraded lands being reclaimed. 6 months into the project, the chiefs and residents of mining areas in the Ashanti, Western North, and Eastern regions are already counting the gains. The Daily Graphic undertook a 3-day visit to 4 reclamation sites located in the Sefirioso and the Bibiani, Ahmiaso, Bekwai municipalities and the Dwaboso district in the Western North region, where it observed high enthusiasm among the community members. And this is something to smile about, especially on the back of Galamsey, its ravages, and what it does to our environment. I just hope this project will be sustained. What I love about it, the fact that it's engaging the communities.
Yeah.
You get it.
The people,
so young people get to assist and maybe earn something out of doing that, which is a good thing. At least someone who is jobless would get something to do.
Instead of going the other side and doing galamsey.
And maybe engaging in crime.
Yeah, engaging in crime. This is something productive.
Just to wrap on the 2 stories, so there's page 16 and page 20. I'll just go quickly through them so we can check out other papers and what they have to share with us this morning. 27 pregnant women die over inability to access hospital. That's in Boku. And between 2021 and last year, 27 pregnant women in need of critical medical attention died in the Boku municipality. A senior health officer at the Upper East Regional Directorate of the Ghana Health Service, Majid Suleimana, has disclosed. Whereas 20 of the pregnant women died in 2021, 7 had died by the end of December last year. Quoting him, he says, "This is as a result of the inability of the pregnant women to visit and receive medical care at the Boku Presbyterian Hospital, the only major referral health facility in the heart of the municipality." So this is basically it. If they don't go there, they're not going to have access, which says a lot about health opportunities in that community. There's also, so SHS freshers to report February the 20th. That is those who have graduated from the basic level. But let me just wrap from that health bit. Let me wrap with the story on page 20. OSP charges 3 for failure to declare incomes, and the Office of the Special Prosecutor has charged 3 public servants and a civil servant for allegedly failing to comply and declare their sources of income. Their failure to declare their sources of income is in contravention of the OSP regulation 2018, that is LI 2374. A statement issued by the OSP on Friday named the 4 as Issa Seidu, who works with the National Insurance Commission, James Kek Osei, who works with the Office of the Vice President as an administrator, as well as John Abban and Peter Archibald Hyde, both of whom are senior officers with the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority. I couldn't help myself, especially considering the name of Peter Archibald Hyde. What did he have to
hide? Interesting.
Anyway, so that's on the OSP note and the bit about the lack of hospital facilities in Boku. I find that really troubling. It's replicated in different parts of the country.
And it's unfortunate. You know, when there's like a war or something is happening, it's always the most vulnerable that get affected. It's not the ones on the battlefield, but it's the ones that are just bystanders, the 27 pregnant women, the children, the old, the elder people. So it's just unfortunate what's happening. But let's go to the Daily Guide, and the big story there is Parliament grills Oforiatta on the debt exchange. We also have BOG-funded government to save the economy. That's according to Dr. Ernest Addison. And $7 million forestry fund approved. Let's go to page 3. Parliament grills Oforiatta on the debt exchange. Now, the Business Committee of Parliament, pursuant to a directive by the Speaker, has programmed the Minister for Finance, Ken Oforiatta, to present a policy brief on the domestic debt exchange program on Thursday. Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin, who disclosed this, said the leadership, after an engagement with the Finance Minister, realized that Tuesday's schedule could not be possible, and he was presenting the business statement for the second week, Friday, February 17, 2023. According to him, the minister indicated that he had committed to an early engagement on behalf of the government on the said Tuesday. Interesting stuff happening with this debt exchange.
I was
Benjamin.
I found it particularly interesting when Madam Sophia Ekofo, the former Chief Justice, got there that day, totally unexpected, and her comments biting, really. And I just thought to myself, if she's feeling the pinch,
imagine Kweku, Abena, Kwame.
If she's feeling the pinch with all the perks of her job and everything, and if she's coming out to do this, and I applaud her for doing that, because sometimes the impression is that for some categories of people at the apex of our society, really, in terms of what they have done and what they have made, they don't feel the pinch, and so they leave these matters for the folks down there to fight. I found it really inspiring that she would join the fight. She also said that it wouldn't be her last time showing up there.
And lawyer Martin Pebu was saying that she's broken a glass ceiling because most of, like you're saying, most of these conversations happen for, Kweku, Kwame and Abna, but, Madam Sophia went, went and she spoke for the people, and so it's quite commendable. It's quite commendable, yeah. But let's go to
They've
Zoom.
promised to return. Those picketing, they've promised to return today. They'll continue today.
But it's
they do about an hour or two.
So unfortunate. They do an hour or two because they don't have the energy. They don't have, it's just really, really, really sad. But let's see if we can go back to our guest on Zoom, Joyce Lanyo. Good morning.
Madam Lanyo, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you join the conversation. So maybe we'll start from this point. We've been talking about a number of matters, but two that I think I'll reserve for you now. One of them has to do with the Daily Graphic newspaper and the lack of access to health facilities in Boku, which has led to the deaths of 27 pregnant women over the last 2 years, 2021 and 2022. And the story that Mapito Sibidi was just reading as well about the domestic debt exchange program. And in fact, we were just talking about the former Chief Justice, Sifaya Kufu, joining them last week. Any quick thoughts on this situation with pregnant women and the domestic debt exchange?
Yeah, good morning to your viewers, and I'm glad to be back to have a discussion on some of these issues. Ghana has aspired to achieving the universal health coverage. And so in looking at the standards, we will have to make health available to everybody, including women, and especially pregnant women. So it's heart-wrenching and heartbreaking to see pregnant women, going through such a difficult situation. Women are wired in a way that they bring some form of life to everybody, husbands, children, family members. So in the case where you have children not able to access health service and leading to death, it's rather unfortunate. So I think the authorities must live up to whatever we have signed to and make it available, make the health service available to everybody, including pregnant women. Pregnancy is a situation where the clients cannot do anything apart from visiting the health facility. So if the facility is not available for pregnancy service, then it's rather unfortunate. That's why they tend to these traditional health systems that affect them in the long run. So I believe the health authorities in Boku will have to really look at their strategies and think through, find ways and means to make this available to every woman within the community. Otherwise, then we are heading towards disaster, in my view, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And on the bit about the domestic debt exchange, Mapito, we actually had the former Chief Justice, Sifaya Kufu, there joining them last week. Any quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to see the former Chief Justice joining the group to protest against the domestic debt exchange program. These are elderly people and our pensioners, like we are saying. And their monies that they've suffered over the years to have and then investing in your own resources to support government, and now government is telling you that, look, it's unfortunate, I'm in this situation, I cannot pay you back your monies or your interest, and so hold on for a number of years. It's like telling them to go and die, because majority of them live on some of these funds to take care of expenses, especially medical expenses. And arriving or achieving those ages goes with health issues. So for the whole Chief Justice, my goodness, joining this demonstration and speaking her mind, I think it's high time the government listen to it, because these are people who have served their dues and they are just there to make use of whatever they've earned over the years to support themselves, to support their families, grandchildren, and all that. Some even have their children still abroad where they have to be paying these school fees. And to tell them this, it's like starving them and not acknowledging the elderly within our society and what they've contributed to. So I think with the inclusion of the Chief Justice in this particular agenda, the government just have to pay hidden ears to what they are saying and grant them their wish.
Madam,
otherwise,
yeah,
then them are going home empty-handed, and it's going to affect their health, their livelihoods, and all that. It's clear. Don't kill pensioners. I mean, so in my view, I think the government will still have to come back and negotiate with them in a manner that will be acceptable, rather than finding elderly people in the sun, Chief Justice, the whole Chief Justice joining in. It's time the government pays heed to what they are saying so that they come to an amicable solution.
Madam Lanyo, are you personally affected by this?
Personally, no, but
Okay.
I actually appreciate their plight.
Yeah.
And I feel it. For these are my aunties, and very soon I'll join the bandwagon.
Yeah.
And within my savings over the years is blocked in such a manner. I mean, it's just to tell me that, look, you can do whatever you do, or maybe that will be it for you. And you know, these things are depressing, very worrying. If you have to be visiting the hospital every month, depending on sources of funding from this end, and it doesn't come, how do you take care of yourself? Especially with the dollar exchange rate and medical bills quadrupling. So I think this will have to have a human face to the discussion, to allay some of the fears that we are envisaging to happen to them in the near future. And I am with them. I agree with them. I sort of buy into what they are saying, because very soon I'll be part of them. And imagine how I will feel. I have my children abroad. I have to take care of them. How do I do that if you block my savings and refrain me from getting access to it? So a human face, if you ask me, should be put to this discussion so that there will be mutual and amicable solution to the challenge they are facing now.
All right. Still in the daily guide, BOG funded government to save the economy. Dr. Addison, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, has defended the central bank's decision to finance government's expenditure last year. According to Dr. Addison, Ghana's economy would have destabilized had the BOG not intervened. And I quote, "We need to remember where we are coming from at the beginning of 2022 when we lost access to the capital market," he said. This is a government that had access to the capital market for at least $3 billion US each year, but we started 2022 with the downgrading of the economy, and therefore the source of financing was not available. That's one story. We also have, in the world of entertainment, South African rapper aka Shot Dead. I'm sure you saw that. It's been trending over the weekend. Some very, very sad
Looks
story
like
there.
the gang violence, or maybe this violence that often attacks musicians in the United States and other places, is catching up in South Africa as well.
I wouldn't say catching up, because in the last year we've only had like what, 3 incidents?
But that's a lot.
That is a lot.
That is a lot. Every life lost is a lot.
Is a lot. Well, yeah, it was unfortunate. The video was terrible.
It actually brings back to mind the legendary reggae musician Lucky Dube and what happened to him, and the person later saying, "I didn't even know it was." I mean,
so with that, okay, yeah, it was what's this thing called, a house robbery gone wrong, yeah, or housebreaking gone wrong.
and in a way,
But
mistaken identity.
Mistaken identity, but with this one, it was clearly targeted.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you see the video, it was clearly targeted. So oh man, it's a sad story. But let's go to another one. 4 grabbed over unexplained wealth. You touched on that story. I'd like Madam Joyce to touch on that story. 3 wealthy public servants and a civil servant have been arrested by the special prosecutor for failing to declare their sources of income. So in an operation known as a lifestyle audit of the rich. They were scheduled to appear before the Criminal Division of the High Court today, or they are scheduled to appear before the Criminal Division of the High Court today, according to the OSP. The OSP is using the power bestowed upon it to demand an explanation for how people obtain their wealth, a practice known as an unexplained wealth order. Your thoughts on this? 4 grabbed over unexplained wealth, and also the BOG funding government to save the economy, according to Dr. Ernest Addison.
Okay, so let me take the BOG issue. You know, before we got to where we were, economists were raising concerns about our debt to GDP rate. And it kept rising. People were talking about it. But yet still, we could not avert the situation. And that brought us to where we are. So I believe even in all these equations, the Bank of Ghana has not given us a clear way as to how we can overcome some of these challenges. But, policy rates and all those things are being increased. So I believe the Bank of Ghana should consistently engage with the system, the policy makers, to be able to find solutions to some of these challenges before we get to where we are. Once we are there, then we are debt distressed. So we have to look for options and other ways to actually alleviate our distress. And I believe if we had started listening to the economists, to people with the skills and the knowledge on where we were heading towards to, we wouldn't have gotten to a stage where we would go to IMF and then borrow, and then they give us their rules and regulation, and we'll come back to just come and put pressure on every situation here in Ghana, every group of persons working, every investment within the session. This has even gone to the extent of collapsing. The economists are saying that if you are not careful, banks will be collapsed because of this situation. So we need to follow. Bank of Ghana will have to consistently follow some of these engagements in order to arrest the situation before we get to where we are. And then in the midst of our distress, other policies are being churned out. I mean, how do we manage? How do we keep up the pace with the situation we find ourselves? So for me, I think Bank of Ghana and then its key stakeholders will have to be constantly looking at ways and means to alleviate pain and economic distress, financial distress of citizenry, and put up policies and procedures that will make us a bit comfortable.
And even as you speak of that, let me just chip in this. I already brought it up, Sophia Kufu's bit, but I find it interesting because Gabi Otredako, you know him, cousin to the president, tweeted for a former CJ, and this is part of a lengthy tweet of his, the 6th part, in fact, for a former CJ to take up a noble cause such as she did, but at such late hour when all was done, and for all that publicity, she owed it to herself and her social standing to have understood the issues far better than what she exhibited last Friday. She is bigger than that. In other words, saying she may have done this for publicity and that she didn't exhibit enough knowledge about the area. Check out this response by Joyce Bawa Mokhtari, former assistant to the former president, who says, "No, sir, I totally disagree with you. As the saying goes, better late than never. Service to humanity must be above an individual. Former CJ Sophia Kufu deserves respect and praise, not gloved insults from you, Gabi, and the MPP government." So that's someone who speaks for former President John Dramani Mahama. What is your quick reaction to this?
I think I want to agree with Joyce Bauer. Look, she just left the government. And so she's part of the government. She was part of the government. She was the whole Chief Justice. And to see her colleague pensioners, I'm sure they have an association where they attend meetings and discuss issues that affect them. So being part of this fraternity, she couldn't have sat down and observed her colleagues who are also equally on pension suffering this fate. And I don't want to sound political. I mean, you are talking about lives of people. You are talking about hard-earned investments. And so we cannot run and say it's just too late to come in. Better be late than never. So I think she has come at a time where her voice will play a key role in government, to actually come into terms and have a discussion and allay the fears of these our pensioners. The Chief Justice, in all uncertain terms, I'm sure, has what it takes. But she's feeling the plight of her colleagues, her colleague pensioners. Probably she's having classmates among them. She's having friends. She's having family members. At the end of the day, it will impact on her to some extent. So as a public figure, we need her voice to be able to bring the information to government. Once she was also part of the higher echelon public official, her voice was needed to bring the information right to the doorstep of our ministers and our president, for them to appreciate. Look, if you are in the soup, you know how the soup is boiling.
Right.
If you are on the periphery and you wouldn't appreciate it. So I think she came in at the right time to bring this information to the doorstep, because she's also been part of government some time past.
Right.
And as a public figure, we will need her voice to help address the situation.
I will quickly go through two papers and wrap from my end, and Mapito will come in as well. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, danger on varsity campuses, police increase presence to check crime and insecurity. Government invests $1 billion in water sanitation. That's according to the sector minister, Cecilia Dapa. Don't stigmatize epilepsy patients. That's according to Dr. Redu. And treason trial, High Court sets today for case management conference. Let's go to page 13. The police administration will soon introduce the Police Visibility and Undercover program on university campuses to check student violence and crime in general to improve security in public universities across the country. The IGP, Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare, said this on Friday while addressing the lecturers, deans, heads of department and students of the University of Energy and Natural Resources in Sunyani. You can check out more details of that story from there. But there's also on the page before, page 12, government invested $1 billion in water sanitation. And the Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, Mrs. Cecilia Dapa, says the government has so far invested close to $1 billion to facilitate the provision of sustainable water and sanitation needs across the country. Maybe I'll be asking all of you out there whether you are feeling the impact of that and what you're looking forward to as a part of that. The Finder newspaper, economic difficulties will be resolved. That's according to President Akufo-Addo. And the story that I'll look at on page 5, row in Parliament over public elections regulations, CI. So let's get to that. The leadership of Parliament Friday directed the exclusion of the constitutional instrument on public elections regulations, voters registration, in its business statement for next week. We all know what that entails. The Electoral Commission is asking that we should use the Ghana card for continuous registration, and members of the NDC, the minority in Parliament, have said no, because this could disenfranchise some people. Any quick thoughts on one or two of these stories?
Yeah, using the Ghana card alone, we just migrated to the use of Ghana card in almost all our dealings, in transactions, financial transactions, identification purposes, DVLA, and all that. And I mean, you agree with me that a chunk of the population are still struggling with their Ghana card registration and how to access it. So I believe that with the use of this card, there should be a process to transit everybody onto the Ghana card system. Because some people, a chunk of the population, still do not have Ghana card for reasons best known to them. There should be public awareness, there should be a creation of all the necessary channels of information for people to appreciate the importance of this Ghana card, such that if this law is being sent to Parliament, and especially without the general debate of the House, a chunk of the opposition saying, look, this is illegal, it didn't go through the process, then it has to be looked at. But if it's rather a push into the system struggle, or you know, how do I put it? It's put into the system clandestinely without a chunk of members of parliament debating it and appreciating the outcomes of what they are doing, then we are leaving a chunk of the populace behind when it comes to election. And you can imagine when it comes to election, what happens when people simply cannot use any other card apart from the Ghana card to.
All right, okay. Yeah. From the custodian, same stories really. NPP, NDC MPs battle over ECCI. We also have Oferiata to face the parliament on the DDP. From the Republic Press, we have 4 in OSP soup for failure to declare source of income. NDC to the Attorney General, withdraw your unlawful letter to the Auditor General. And the last one that we've already discussed, Gabby chides Sophia Akufo for picketing over the DDEP. But also in the world of sports, Chris Hughton is Black Stars' new coach. And we have a very interesting conversation coming up. Muftar will handle that for us. But Madam Joyce Lanyo, thank you so much for your time and spending this Monday morning with us.
Thank you, and it's always my pleasure.
Madam Lanyo is an educationist and country director, International Child Development Program, and she joined us for that conversation. But up next,
it's sports.
Yes, we have sports with Muftar Nabila Abdullahi. A lot to look forward to. Don't you forget, later on we'll also be bringing you that scoop on Chris Hughton and his appointment after the big story on education. Do stay with us.
Good morning, Muftar Nabila Abdullah here with AM Sports. An open secret it was, and it has come to pass as the Ghana Football Association confirms the appointment of Chris Hughton as the successor of Otto Addo. The Ghana Football Association, in a statement on Sunday evening, said that the vision of the football governing body is to ensure continuity within the technical direction of the national team, hence their decision to appoint Chris Hughton, who was a technical advisor to Otto Addo, Didi Dramani, and George Boateng. Didi Dramani, George Boateng will be the assistants to Chris Hughton. However, the duration of his contract with the Ghana Football Association is yet to be officially announced. But per the gentleman agreement between the two parties, which Joy Sports knew about, was about 3 years, and he was expected to be on a monthly salary of $70,000. But it's been nearly a year since the two parties came into this agreement, and there's a possibility that there could be some changes following Ghana's participation in the FIFA World Cup in Qatar. What we are also made to understand is that Chris Hughton already was working behind the scenes to assemble his technical team for next month's AFCON qualifiers. One of them is against Angola, which is going to be his first assignment as a head coach of the Black Stars. The GFA and its Executive Council met on December 22 and firmed Chris Hughton as the next head coach of the senior national team. Let's hear from one man who has worked with Chris Hughton, that is Didi Dramani, and he's been speaking about the qualities of the former Newcastle, Brighton and Hove Albion and Nottingham Forest coach as he comes in to replace Otto Addo as the head coach of the Black Stars.
He's a complete person with good experience. with huge maturity in terms of. So when I talk about huge maturity, then it means you know that his experience and his knowledge in the game both together makes him a more mature. And he's a human-centered person. You know, he connects people a lot. And a person who connects people a lot, you know, tells you that he's somebody who really stands out for development. I'll show you his pictures. He know he was here. He came here. I just told him, look, there's something good to come in our environment, so that you understand what a right to dream is all about. And then he came. I sent for him. He came, and we spent the whole day here. He was flying out that very day. We spent time in my technical office to engage with my staff. We spent time to engage with the student fools. So what does it tell? It tells you that this person is a human-centered person. And in our environment, we need people who are human-centered people. People can easily, you know, get at, you know, at that level, you need people who connect and work, you know, so that you bring your experience to bear. And so completely he's a human-centered person who connects people around.
Let's look at our Premier League stories. And the first round came to an end on Sunday. Kumasi Asante Kotoko suffered a 2-0 loss at the hands of Dreams FC at the Theatre of Dreams. Accra House of Folk sat at the Accra Sports Stadium and won 3-1 against Brecum Chelsea.
Free kick for Dreams FC. This should be the opening goal, and Dreams FC have opened the score here in Deu. Good connection. He took it on a volley, no doubt about the quality. Here is McCarthy to Boa, and Boa's efforts intercepted by Japan, but Dreams FC take possession back. Here is AJ. Dreams FC looking for the second. Jenny Boatin, and it's an amazing finish. So look at AJ, but how did Japan allow Jenny Boatin to pick up the ball and slot it at the blind side of Dunlad? Just look at Ejanim Boatin. He skipped past Japan too easily, and Dunlad had to make way out of his area. He made sure Dunlad had no answers whatsoever. So that is the 5th goal in 17 matches. Awako, Kosa, Benjamin York, back to Kosa, chance for Hatzabok, and it's an own goal. It's an own goal from Lord Armour. The Phobians in the lead. The ball from Awaku was precise to find Kosa, tried to play the 1-2 with York. He gets the return, and it's the captain Zakaria Fuseni who scores. Anane steps in to make his debut for the Phobians. Here is Zakaria Fuseni. The flag is up. It won't count. The flag was up. Offside. Upon with the delivery, not dealt with well by the Phobians. Shot in by Zakaria Fuseni, but that's offside. No questions. York, Awaku, Suraj finds York. It's a chance for the Phobians. Benjamin York. Oh, that's a brilliant goal from Benjamin York. He makes it 2 for the Phobians in fantastic style. The build-up was good. The pass was brilliant. He rounds up the goalkeeper. There's a yawning net, and he places it in. Hatzabok up by 2-0. I thought the initial first touch was not good, but he kept his composure and he slots it in so beautifully. Has 2. Chelsea 0. Benjamin York. What a way to come back after that defeat to RTU in Tamale for the Phobians. Zakaria. Chelsea, they're looking dangerous. Kusi, and the pull one back. Pandros Kusi has pulled one back for Brecum Chelsea. It's 2-1 and it's game on. The Phobians look to have taken their foot off the accelerator after scoring, and Chelsea won't give up. It's a good goal from Pandros Kusi. Awako is looking for Clinton Apia. Here is Clinton. That's what to still hang on. Now he sends a cross to the near post, and it's a third goal for the Phobians. Victor Edu makes it 3 for Sabak. Good connection from Edu. Has 3, Chelsea 1. The ball had crossed the line. We'll have a second look whether it crossed the line or it didn't cross the line. No, it didn't cross the line. It did not cross the line. The entire circumference of the ball did not cross the line. The cross was good. The connection was perfect. Has 3, Chelsea 1. Near post header from Edu. The Phobians have won this in remarkable style.
Of match day 17 in the Ghana Premier League, Dreams FC, as you saw, gone by. 1-2-0 against Kumasi Asante Kotoko. King Faisal 1-0 against Real Tamale United. Tamale City sat at home and drew 1-1 against Midiama FC. Samatex, they won 2-1 against Legon Cities. In Stratumana FC were also 2-1 winners over Greater Olympics. Kaola United 1-2-1 against Kotoku Royals. These were the results of match day 17 in the Ghana Premier League. That's your sports for now, but we'll be back at 8:50 for a conversation with new Black Stars coach Chris Hilton. What does he bring to the table? We'll be joined by Laia Kingston and Coach Jay Sapon for that conversation. The show continues right after this round of messages.
A warm welcome back on the AM show. Now, we're going to be focusing on education this morning as we hit our big stories. And we'll start from the standpoint of the former Director General and Rector of GIMPA, Professor Stephen Ade, who says his revolutionary strategy towards transforming the poor performance of basic schools in Ghana is to simply sack all the teaching staff. He notes that the lack of active supervision in public basic schools has resulted in highly qualified teachers not pulling their weight to ensure that students excel in their various subjects. We're going to be discussing this all-important matter with Professor George Odro, Professor of Educational Leadership, UNESCO Institute for Educational Planning and Administration. He's a former Pro-Vice-Chancellor of the UCC. Also joining the conversation, Dr. Peter Anti, Executive Director, Institute for Educational Studies. He's a lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, and Reverend Isaac Owusu, NAT President. But let's, before we get into the matter, rehash what Professor Ade said when he spoke to Aisha Ibrahim on PM Personality Profile.
It's a sad story.
It is, I think.
It's a sad story. First of all, we have allowed the quality of our basic education to collapse in the public sector. It's so sad. The teachers are not teaching. They are qualified, far more qualified than we were, because mine was you first start serving and go for 4 years.
Yes.
These days, they are almost all graduates.
Yeah.
I hear that from today, there will be no people teachers teaching.
Wow.
We were having people teachers teaching alongside with us, and yet we were producing results far more and better.
Yep.
At this moment, if you go to the poor private schools, the people who are teaching there are secondary school dropouts, but all their children are literate. But go to the public sector, the average person cannot read and write because the teachers have refused to teach, and they are being allowed to get away with murder.
So sad.
In teaching in a school, only 3 things matter: the supervision, that's the authority of the head teacher and the supervising them, insisting that teachers do teach, and holding them accountable. These have been let go at the basic level. And therefore, And you can see it graphically in our school in my village. Do you know that when people come from the 15 junior high schools, we have to spend 1 year with them to make them up to standards that you can now teach them secondary school.
Wow.
When they go to senior secondary school nationwide, this is the year we are celebrating that 60% passed. But do you know what even that means? And that is a good result. It means 40% failed.
40% failed.
And the average over the years is 50%. 50% pass and 50% fail. Any education system which produces 50% almost failures is in dire crisis. But do you know why even the 50% passed? First, you will always have some people, God talented and that, no matter what,
Definitely.
if you put him in the hole,
they will still make
the
it.
rest, they have to pay for 2 extra classes.
Yes.
The same teachers, they won't teach them. It's after the class,
Then
and
they
if you
will
don't
take
go,
extra money and teach
you
them.
will fail. Because they will tell you, the teachers themselves will tell you, if you don't come, you will fail. And you will fail too.
Quite interesting.
And this is the system we are presiding over. I have always said, you know, you don't need to put more. The government is spending enough money and not getting the right output. But the secret of changing it is not more money. Simply, and that's my extreme revolutionary one, just give notice and sack all the teachers. Period. 3 months notice during long vacation, you are no longer employed. Then ask people to apply for headship, head teachers and principals. Select quality ones, put them in the schools, and then say that now, and pay them well, pay the principal and the head teacher about twice their salary, because they are so important, and say now you are free to employ whoever you want to employ. I'll give you the money, but you from today have the authority to discipline them and get the results. And if you don't get the results, you, the head teacher,
you'll be fired.
The one, you will be held responsible. Within 1 year, the quality of education will rise from here to there.
Thank you for staying. And those were the thoughts, and still are, of the former rector of GIMPA, Professor Stephen Adey. What do you think? What do you make of his suggestion? You out there, do share with us your thoughts via the live stream. At the tail end, we'll activate the phone lines, but we'd love to hear from you. What do you make of his suggestion? Sack all of them, sack all the staff at the basic level, then bring in head teachers and others, give them all the perks of the job, and let them bring in people who will actually work. But revolutionary, yes, but is it feasible? Is it practical? Joining us for the discussion, we have Dr. Peter Anti, together with some other guests. But let's start with Dr. Anti, Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies and lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. Doc, a very good morning to you. It appears we do not have Dr. Anti. Professor George Odro also joins the conversation. Prof, a very good morning to you. Hello, Professor Odro. If you can hear me, please unmute. So basically, we're talking about, as we prepare to have our guests, some technical issues. But the thrust of the conversation this morning, we're looking at education, and Professor Stephen Adey, who has been in education for donkey years, says for him, when it comes to the basic level, and mind you, the basic level is the most important in the development of any child. If the basic level is messed up, everything could be affected. He is saying basically that at the basic level, there's so much non-performance that we should sack all the staff, bring in, re-recruit, so to speak, new headships, head teachers among others, and let them handpick their staff, in which case we'll get value for money. Professor Oduro, if you can hear me now, a very good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning to you, my brother.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation. I'd like your initial thoughts on this take by your colleague, Professor Stephen Adey. I'm sure you've heard him say this, and this wouldn't actually be the first time. What do you make of this suggestion of his? Hello, Prof. Do we have Professor Oduro with us? Well, it appears this morning is going to be pretty tricky because the connections to all of them the connections are pretty problematic. Prof, is that Prof?
Hello. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Did you get the question?
Hello. Hello.
Did you get the question, Prof? All right, let me move on to Dr. Peter Anti. We'll try to raise Professor Oduro on the phone line. Dr. Anti, good morning. Welcome to the conversation. Dr. Peter Anti, are you there? Hello, Doc. All right, so quite a morning. What is going on with the network connections across the board? But we have Professor Oduro now via the phone. Prof, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. I was asking, what is your initial reaction to this statement by Professor Stephen Adey, basically saying if we want to transform basic education in the country, we have to sack en masse all of these teaching staff, then recruit or re-recruit leadership of the various institutions and let the leadership pay them well, give them the perks, and let them recruit staff they can work with. That's the only way forward. What is your initial reaction to that? Hello, Prof.
Hello. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, my initial thought, greetings to your viewers. It's unfortunate the network is not business. But my initial thought, starting on his own premise, I quote him, we've allowed the quality of public schools, these schools, to be lowered. And then he goes on, supervision is a challenge. Supervision has been led to go down. Now, if supervision is the issue, which I totally agree with, why should the negligence of supervisors lead to the sacking of teachers who do not supervise themselves? That is my first question. My second question, if he is recommending that all public school teachers should be and made to reapply, how different or what difference would it make if all of them are sacked, made to reapply, and engage to work within the same context of poor quality supervision? Now, so my brother, you come to see this. If I go back to 2012 and then listen to what my good professor said about teachers, it gives me the impression that he is singling out teachers for a blame, and for this, I think it's very unfair. Because no matter the effectiveness of a teacher, if the requisite support systems are not available, the teacher cannot perform. And I'm very happy he was the chairman of the National Development Planning Commission. And he knows very well that creating an enabling environment for teachers is key in ensuring quality delivery. So if this is out, why should a teacher be targeted for blame? Why should teachers be targeted for a blame? And for this, I think I beg to differ with that position. Fix the challenge. You know the challenge. Schools basically do not have necessary textbooks to use. What suggestion is he giving as former chairman of the National Development Planning Commission? You know very well that quality assurance is very key in enhancing performance. And one way schools assure quality is through examinations, is through repeating students who are not performing for the sake of remedial, reinforcing their knowledge. In a context where the teacher has no control over promotions, where the policy states that do not repeat anybody, why should you blame the teacher for the non-performance of teachers, of pupils? So, my brother, I think that we need to look at the challenge, which personally, and I agree, I find to be very threatening to the future of our schools so far as quality is concerned. We need to adopt a holistic approach to finding solutions to that and leave teachers alone. Resource teachers, and I assure you, teachers will perform. You only have to go to the disadvantaged schools, my brother. Your team can do that and find out the trying conditions under which teachers in this country perform, operate. If you resource teachers, they will perform. I think my senior brother, professor, should go back to his NDPC agenda table and identify the importance of redistributing resources and ensuring that resources hit the schools at the right time. And I assure him he will find a difference.
So
yes, supervision is a challenge. Tackle that. Leave teachers alone.
Are you saying the teachers are not to blame in any way? You talk about supervision, yes, and there are supervisory systems at the district level, the regional level, the national level, things that ought to be done that I agree are not being done. But the teachers themselves, the quality of the teachers, the quality of their delivery, he talks about the fact that in some instances, what the teachers are supposed to give out to the students, what they are supposed to communicate to the students, they keep and reserve for extra classes and all of that so they can make some quick money, sometimes on the back of the remuneration, the pay they get. So how are you categorizing this? You have said here that if you sack those teachers, they are the same ones who will reapply, and if supervision has not changed, nothing much will change. So the burden of supervision is there, but what onus lies on the teaching staff at the basic level as well? What do you think?
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree. You see, in any organization, we have deviants. We have deviants. And my brother, even within your media operations, I'm very sure there are individuals who do different things from assignments that they are given. Does that warrant dismissal of all staff of your media house? No. Let's identify the deviants and deal with them. That is why the Ghana Education Service has a disciplinary code. A code. So identify those people and deal with them.
So just a quick interjection or intervention, if you like. What if the deviants turn out to be far more than those actually doing the work? Would it then not mean that we should sack them, just as Professor Ade suggests?
Well, so we need the evidence. But from where I sit, I can assure you that those who engage in such activities are far less than the number of teachers. We have majority teachers very committed. There are few deviants. I agree. And so, if we have no data to back that, calling for dismissal, I mean, we are being unfair to teachers. Be unfair to teachers.
Right. Do hold for me briefly, Professor Drew. Let me also bring in Dr. Peter Anti of the IES. Dr. Anti, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Is that Dr.
Good morning.
Anti?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. The way you went, good morning, sir, I was almost taken aback. you can always call me Ben, Dr. Anti. Anyway, so looking at this proposal by Stephen Ade, Professor Stephen Ade, what do you make of it? Your initial reaction to it?
The first thing I would say is that it seems that this is something he's been thinking about for years, because it's evident that anytime he's given the opportunity to comment on the quality of basic education in Ghana, he always resorts to this kind of approach, which he calls the radical approach. So it's something that he's been thinking about. It would be interesting for us to see whether he's carried any scientific academic work in terms of his approach that he is proposing. Again, I also want to state that I agree with him to some extent, because
We're having some challenges with the connections to our guests. This time it is Dr. Peter Anti. Doc, are you still on the line? Can you hear me? I suspect a call may have come through and interfered with the connection. Dr. Anti, can you hear me? Right, so as we try to reconnect with him, he's been talking about the fact that he does agree in some way, to some extent, with Professor Stephen Ade, but he was questioning whether there was any scientific, background, proof of what he says, that the teachers at the basic level are not doing their work. Dr. Anti, please continue with your point. We lost you at a point, so maybe you could just go back and reiterate what you were saying.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Do go ahead with your point.
He's talking about this for some years now. He's been talking about this for some years now, and it's as an academic, I'm thinking that he should have some sort of a scientific academic work that he's carried on out in that area, and it will be interesting to read his research work on his proposal and what the outcomes were, especially when he said that if you do this within 1 year, the quality would move from wherever it is to the highest level. That is something that we need proof to see that indeed he's practiced this somewhere, or he's research into it in a certain area, and that was the outcome that he had. Again, I was saying that I agree with him, because everybody in the education space agrees that supervision and monitoring and accountability is a big issue when it comes to basic education. But the problem is his remedy for that challenge, and that is where we depart in terms of ideas. I think that his remedy is parochial, it is myopic, it is narrow, it is problematic, and in the education system that seeks to do that would collapse in no uncertain terms. And basically that is what I think about it in general terms.
So you think his approach is parochial, myopic? What was the other word he used?
It's problematic, and it is narrow.
Problematic and narrow. I'll be later on. I'll find out from Prof what he thinks about these words that he've used, whether they aptly capture the situation. But before you joined the conversation, we're also talking about the supervisors from the very basic level, from the district level all the way to the national level. Those who should be ensuring that teachers are actually delivering the deliverables, who are not doing so. His solution, Professor Day, is to rid the system of all of these teachers and for those who qualify to reapply, basically to bring in head teachers who fit the bill, who can do the work, maybe serve as supervisors, and then they will handpick people they can work with, people who will be able to man the system properly. Do you think that is practical? You talk about it's being problematic, but is it totally unworkable in our own context? What do you think, Dr. Anti?
It would demand a lot of work. That's why I'm saying that. You see, one thing we should understand is that educational systems should be, educational policies should be time tested. You cannot play try and error with educational policies. The reason why what he is saying is difficult is that, in the first place, in Ghana, we practice the centralized system of educational planning and administration. It's for some years now, we try to discuss the issue of decentralization of education, where the district assemblies would have authority on the schools that are under their jurisdiction. But we have not been able to finalize this particular policy. So I was thinking that if he is asking headmasters to take charge of employment of teachers, then indirectly he's calling for a discussion on decentralization of educational practices in Ghana. And that discussion needs to be undertaken, consultations needs to be done, and then we need to agree on how we go around this. Again, if he is talking about supervision, the headmaster is technically a supervisor. So in our educational system, we have external supervisors and we have internal supervisors. The headmaster is an internal supervisor. The headmaster's ability to function as an internal supervisor hinges on two things: his knowledge of education administration and management, as well as leadership skills and qualities that the headmaster himself have. At the same time, it also depends on the resources available to the headmaster to be able to act as a supervisor. So if the headmaster is not given the resources needed, especially in these times where capitation grant, which is the sole income to the school, is delayed and the headmaster is not having these things, the headmaster would be handicapped when it comes to supervision. So it doesn't matter if you ask the headmaster to recruit the best teachers, if the headmaster does not have the needed resources, he cannot function effectively. Again, the external supervisors are also a part of the educational system, and they are faced with their resources are not there. If you talk to external supervisors, what we now call the CISOs, they will tell you that they don't have the needed resources to visit the schools. Ideally, if you look at the policies of GES, I think supervisors are supposed to visit the school 3 times, a minimum of, I think, 3 times within the term. How many times are supervisors able to go to the schools? Do they have the requisite transport facilities? These are things that these external supervisors also face. So you cannot, again, say that the supervision of the external is not top-notch when you have not provided the needed resources that these external supervisors need to be able to function effectively. The last point about his proposal, again, which I indicate that it is problematic, is that he is advocating that headmasters should be paid well. So he agrees that headmasters are not paid well. And he's saying that they should be paid well and then monitored by performance. So we have what we call pay for performance, the PFP model that have been practiced in jurisdictions in various areas. And I can tell you that if you look at the literature, the World Bank itself has come to say that when it comes to PFP, that is pay for performance, it is problematic and have not been able to achieve its objective when you come to low and middle income countries. And the reason is that if the teacher or the headmaster is paid based on the performance of the student, two things comes out. One, there's a possibility of encouraging cheating in the educational system, and teachers tend to teach according to what they think the exams is supposed to be about. But of course, we know that the curriculum is designed to ensure the holistic development of the child. And not everything that is put in the curriculum is testable. So if you are doing this, and these are reports that have been published by the World Bank and other authorities. So if you are doing this, you are not certain to get the requisite results, which which is saying that there will be improvement in the quality standards in our basic schools.
Right.
So he needs to prove to us that since he has been talking about this as an academic and a senior one, of course, the works that he has done in those areas that supports his assertion that by going by his radical approach, the academic performance and the quality of basic education in Ghana would move from 0 to 100%.
Hold for me, Dr. Anti. Let me also bring in Reverend Isaac Owusu, NAT President. Rev, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Thank you for having me, Benjamin.
It's a great pleasure having you, and my apologies for holding you on the line for a while. What for you is the thrust of everything that Professor Ade has been saying? Like I mentioned, I heard him say this many years ago, and he is reiterating it, saying that if we're going to save basic education, it starts from draining the swamp, so to speak. Sack all of them. And then bring in head teachers that you're going to remunerate very, very well, and then let them bring in their own charges, staff to take over. But as has been suggested right here on this program, you sack them, they reapply, same scenario, poor supervision, you've achieved nothing. Is that your thinking?
Well, Benjamin, thank you once again, and let me say very good morning to your cherished viewers, and also good morning to my colleague panel members on the show this morning. You see, in as much as we all admit that we have a challenge confronting the basic education system in Ghana, when anybody wants to propose a solution, you don't attach emotion to your solutions. What Professor suggested, I see that Professor was too much of emotions. The challenge is that it isn't that the teachers and the head teachers and the standard supervisors are not capable of doing what has been assigned to them. The reality is that, look, the people who are supposed to do the work are available, readily available. The employer has a duty to make sure that he provides the workers with the necessary tools and equipment to enable them to work. Now, if you are a district director and within a whole year, GOG has never come to you, Benjamin, how do you, as a director, monitor and supervise effectively? If you are a head teacher and ironically, the Ghana Education Service will let you sign performance agreement that you are to do ABCD, and then the employer will also do ABCD. But when the head teachers sign on this performance agreement, then the GES will go to sleep. The capitation grant, which is the sole income for the school, let's go back and look at the number of arrears that the employer is owing the school. Now we have second supervisors not supposed to even use rush to this remote area. My brother, they are not getting anything to buy fuel to power their motorbike. And so if we have all these challenges and you come out to suggest that we should sack teachers and hire head teachers for them to employ their own teachers, this is not a private school that we are operating. I know Prof as a private school, but you see, the policy governing private school is different from that of the public. In the public schools, the sole responsibility lies on the government and Article 38 of the Constitution. So instead of Prof suggesting that we should start the teachers, then what happened to the Ghana Education Service? What happened to the Ministry of Education? Is it for nothing that the Constitution established the Ministry of Education? So to me, I think that Prof always attach motions to whatever he suggests in public. And it is not good. It is not good for us to be going to that at all.
let's decouple what he said from whatever emotion may have been expressed. Is there any truth in there that we could apply in any way, any shape, any form? Dr. Anti said that, look, if we're going to implement this, it will take a whole lot, resources and more, and we're simply not ready for that. But from where you sit, is everything he's proposing bad? Is there something we can pick from it and maybe make our basic educational system better, Reverend Owusu?
Well, the proposal needs a broader consultation, a stakeholders meeting, for us to look at appropriate solutions that is confronting the challenges of our education in Ghana. You see, like I said, it's not a matter of sacking teachers, appointing head teachers to take charge. Look, Prof has a school. The head teacher managing Prof school, Prof has made available resources to his head teacher. You see, so I will be happy that at least Prof grandson or granddaughter will have been in this public school. Then Prof will have a feel of how the children and the teachers are going through the suffering. But in Ghana, all of us, the middle income earners, we have all taken our children and our grandchildren outside the public basic school. And you see, the fact is that the central government alone cannot and can never provide all the needed resources in the basic schools. It should be a partner, collective agreement. All hands should be on deck. But if you, Prof, you are there, you are managing your private school, then you come and throw bomb in a public school. At least, when you do that, you are rather demotivating.
Are you suggesting Professor Adair is being hypocritical?
How about that? That is not my word. What I'm saying is that, you see, we need to face the reality as a nation. Look, these are the kids, even common textbooks, they don't have. Teachers are sacrificing their life, accepting to go to this remote area. Some have to cross streams and rivers without even life jacket. And you sit down and say that this just will be such because we are getting 0%.
Let me hold for me, Reverend Owusu. Let me bring in Professor Odro one more time. Prof, if you can hear me, looking at where the conversation has led to, what do you think when it comes to the role of poor remuneration, poor pay, and teachers, collecting money and all of that, like Professor Adair suggested? So some of them, you would see them in class and they will tell you, if you don't do these extra classes with me, you will fail. And indeed, they would reserve what they should be teaching in class and teach them there. But it all goes back to poor salaries. What role does that play in this entire setup, and what can be done about it in the public setting? Professor Odro?
Yes, hello, thank you. Thank you very much for that question. Yeah, as I earlier said, teaching profession operates with rules. There's ethics. Yeah, there are ethics. Ethics governing the practice of teaching in the classroom. If any teacher engages in that, denying children the right to learning during the teaching learning section, and then coercing them to engage in extra classes, it is an offense. It is a corrupt act.
But let's face it, that's the reality. That's the reality we see.
Should appear before a disciplinary committee and the necessary action taken against the teacher. Yeah. I have heard about these practices, but there hasn't been any evidence to prove that. I do not rule out the fact that first is a possibility or it occurs. But what percentage of teachers are engaged in that? I think the solution lies in what Professor Ade has proposed about supervision. That is where we have to tackle. And I agree with my brother Auntie when he said, even the structures that have been put in place, those who are to engage in supervision do not have the necessary resources to actually carry out this. So I think if we want to solve the challenge of this extra classes issue, strengthen supervision, strengthen the hands of the head teachers. My brother, would you believe that head teachers do not have control over teachers' performance in schools? The head teacher cannot say that I have dismissed you from the school because, as Mr. N.T. said, the whole thing is centralized. So it calls for a holistic, evidence-based analysis to get the issue solved. You see? And as
do you think, as you suggest this,
issue
Prof,
is just create supporting teaching environment for teachers, and they will surely perform. Simple, that is that. Now, the idea of payment by performance. Hello?
Yes, Prof, go ahead.
You see, in the 18th century, the 19th century, we had this payment by results, which was used in a way to ensure that there's performance. But the inspector of schools at the time, one Reverend Santa, analyzes and described it as ridiculously complicated and unworkable. So if even at that time, where teachers had access to resources, Reverend Santa could describe that payment by results approach as ridiculously complicated and unworkable, then you can imagine how that context will be in our present times. You see, so let us ensure that teachers are supported, resources get to the schools at the right time. Let's do our part as employers. Then we'll be in a position of exacting supervision. One reason I think supervision is not going on well, I assume that one too has to be tested though. I assume is the fact that if I am a supervisor and I get to a school, a classroom, and appreciate the horrible conditions under which the teacher is teaching, I will be demotivated to even act. So let us resource the schools, and my brother, I bet you, performance will improve. And I want to also plead with you. Mr. N.T. talked about evidence. Where is the evidence? I'm talking because I'm also a professor. And professor is a professor because he or she subjects issues to rigorous analysis based by evidence. But if I look at the trend of my senior professor's blame of teachers, it is obvious that his blame of teachers is based on biases. And I think that doesn't help us in finding solutions to the quality devalued challenges we have as a nation. Let us tackle the issue holistically, devoid of biases and emotions.
A quick one, a very quick one before I move back to Dr. Ante. You speak about empowering head teachers. So at a point you were saying that the headmasters and others don't even have the power to sack teachers who are not performing and all of that, and that the system is centralized. In a way, that means that you agree with him to some extent when he talks about, well, sacking the teachers. Maybe you disagree with him on that, but then bring in effective head teachers into the system and then let them select their own staff. So on that point, are you in agreement with him?
Oh, yeah. As for that one, you see, basically, and the evidence is very clear, that supervision, lack of effective supervision, is what makes the difference between private schools and then public schools.
Right.
So if we have identified supervision as a challenge, then the big question is, what can we do to ensure that supervision is improved? And the first stage of supervision is at the school level, the head teacher. So let us empower the head teacher. The head teacher should be resourced. The head teacher should be given the free hands to determine who should teach in the school. You see, posting of teachers to the school shouldn't be centralized, done at the ministry, done of the Ghana Education Service, which in our current context obviously is marred by certain interests that do not hinge on merit. Good. So I think that, yes, let us empower head teachers. Let us reduce interference from above and allow head teachers to operate.
Okay.
And then we put in the accountability bit. So once the employer does its part by resolving the schools, empowering the head teachers, then you will be in the position of ensuring that accountability comes to play.
Right.
Right. Because, to be honest with you, unless the school and teacher support system improves, even if government sacks all public school teachers and appoints angels and place them in such poor supervision context, students will still underperform.
Thanks for that point. Thanks for that analysis. Let me bring in Dr. Anti. Are you in agreement with him on the bit about head teachers serving as supervisors? Maybe that's part of resolving the problem, getting the quality in there in terms of the head teacher, department, and then also empowering them, giving them some power rather than this centralized system where they have next to no power. Are you in agreement?
Yes, I think I have indicated this earlier on. I agree that our head teachers are handicapped when it comes to managing and our schools. I think that is the reason why there was a discussion that just appointing headmasters based on years of experience should be looked at, and that there will be training in terms of school administration and management for people who aspire to be heads of various educational institutions. So we have admitted that headmasters or head teachers are handicapped when it comes to undertaking their role in the schools, especially where you see a head teacher acting as both an administrative head and an instructional leader. The head teacher teaches in the classroom. At the same time, he's supposed to be the administrative head of the school. These activities demand that he's well paid so that he'll be able to carry out all these activities, all these responsibilities. So I agree, but the point is that his prescription is what is problematic, and I think I've illustrated that enough. Again, if we want to go by this tangent, then we have to bring back the discussion on decentralization of educational system. I don't know the state, because I've seen and I've read documents that indicated that as far back as 2012, there were discussions around decentralizing our educational system. And I don't know the state of that particular discussion. I hope that we kickstart such a discussion to see how we'll be able to decentralize education to the extent that power is given to the base. I mean, at the school level, the headmaster have a lot of power and authority to undertake certain functions that will enable him ensure that quality is assured in the school that he or she is in charge. As it stands now, you cannot hold any headmaster responsible, because the headmaster have no control over the number of desks that is being provided in the school. If the headmaster is having challenges with desks, all he can do is to make a report to the district or to the CISO, to the district, to the regional, and then to the national. And sometimes it takes journalists like yourself, media houses like yourself, your School of Shame project and other things, for the central authority to now procure desks and distribute them to the schools in various districts, which is very problematic. And as far as we continue to run an educational system like this, we are going to have challenges with our public education system. And that's why we think that Prof's position is very, very narrow, because you cannot lump all these challenges in the sector and say that the only solution to this is by sacking all teachers and then re-employing them by asking the headmaster to do that. That will not solve the problem. It wouldn't. Of course, there's no way that you'll be able to achieve that.
So tell me, if these head teachers are to be given wider powers so they can operate more, so they can supervise better, what sorts of add-ons do you foresee they should be given? Maybe from the central authority, some of those powers ought to be taken and handed to these headmasters. What do you think the headmasters ought to receive in terms of further empowerment?
Of course, if you are giving the headmaster additional, the needed power, it means that his remuneration should be looked at. You have to pay the headmaster very well to be able to carry out his duties. You have to give the headmaster the needed resources. I've proposed that the capitation grant should be increased, and not increased only, but should be paid and released on time, so the headmasters will have enough resources to buy the needed things that the school requires to be able to run effectively. The headmaster should have a say in achieving quality standards when it comes to various quality variables that we have in the school. Quality variables such as student to desk ratio, student to textbook ratio, student to teacher ratio. The headmaster should have a say. Let me tell you an experience I've had with the centralized posting that we are practicing. I've gone to a school whereby the students are not able to speak the language of the teacher. The teacher who was posted from the northern region and was posted to the western region, some place. The teacher does not speak the local language of the kids. The kids are not able to express and speak English. So when you go to that class, and this is supervision in that class, when you go to that class, what happens is that another teacher would have to come to the class and translate whatever the teacher is teaching to the kids for them to appreciate and understand. Now, if the headmaster have a say in those who are being posted in the school, the headmaster at the first instance would have had interaction with this teacher and would have taken the necessary steps to ensure that teachers that are brought to the school are of a certain quality and a certain quality, so that they would deliver the content as they are supposed to do. So these are the things that we need to add on to the headmaster. We also have to give them the needed training. Profs, IEPA is there. They are empowered to teach educational leaders and then administrators. We have to run these things always for headmasters so that they also have an idea and understanding of how to manage and administer education in an educational institution. These are the empowerments that we have to give head teachers when it comes to equipping them to function effectively as both supervisors and instructional leaders in our basic education system. I need to also state that we have to understand that this problem is not only about supervision. We are saying that one leg is supervision, but a lot of other factors come into play, and we need to appreciate that parents also play a critical role in helping raise the standard of education in public basic schools, especially in this time where parents feel that they have no responsibility towards their wards in these schools. They do not visit the schools. They don't care whether their wards have exercise books, nothing at all, because governments have assumed all these responsibilities and is not able to do. We need to reiterate the point that parents also have something to a role to play. The community, in those days, the community took charge of the schools in their space. And the ministers, reverend ministers, the assembly people, the chiefs, and other opinion leaders could go to the school and have interaction with teachers and with the head teachers to understand and appreciate the challenges that they are going through. So we have to look at this in a more holistic manner if we really want to solve this problem. But Prof's approach, I don't think we can go by that.
Hold for me. Two interesting comments have come through. Honorable Jay says, what this man is saying, I'm thinking you're referring to Professor Stephen Adey, is something our leaders must listen to. If they claim they are doing the job, how come the students are failing? That's what you say. Then Kingsley Male Ajay says, tell the government to provide teaching materials, build good schools, and pay teachers well. Then they will see good results. Coming to you, Reverend Owusu, looking at the situation and the discourse on head teachers, what are some of the challenges, since you are in there, what are some of the challenges of the head teachers at the basic level that you feel ought to be dealt with, remedied, if this entire bit about failure at the basic level can also change?
The issue is very simple. This is a head that has been assigned a school. And the head is supervising the teachers as well as the students. Now, the beginning of the term, this is the chief supervisor for the school. The condition says that the teachers are supposed to prepare in advance before they start teaching. Now, the head is supposed to give the teachers the necessary materials, i.e. lesson notebook, exercise books, teacher learning material. But here is the case, the head is not having any of such material. As my brother Auntie said, the system has been centralized. So the head is solely dependent on GS headquarters, Accra, to release this material. Because look, if you are a head and you've not furnished the teachers with the necessary material, what moral courage will you get to even questioning a teacher who is underperforming? The same thing applies to the secretary supervisor, who is to come to supervise the work of the head teacher. The secretary supervisor comes to the school, there is no capitation grant. Even at a point in time, the head wants to use his personal money to make sure he purchases some of this material. So you, the secretary supervisor, what moral courage will you get to question the head teacher? Now, the secretary supervisor is also to supervise the schools under his or her secretary. The district director do not have the courage to question the secretary supervisor because the director is supposed to furnish the secretary supervisor with the necessary logistics. Now you come to the director, the chief director within the district, which is the director of education. She is also unable to perform her work because even common fuel, the directors are not getting. So teachers are not lazy. Teachers are not lazy. If we are giving the resources on time, Benjamin, I bet you, these things will be a thing of a past. I am not saying that we are superhuman beings as teachers. Of course, we have our weakness. But if you make the materials available, if the teacher comes to class, there are enough furniture. The block serving as a school is a nice one, well painted, well furnished. I'm telling you, who will not love to deliver to his or her best? So the solution is not about sacking teachers, but it's about how all of us, all hands will be on deck. We should not leave education in the hands of the government alone. You see, if we leave it in the government alone, I am telling you, year will come, year will go, we'll still come to your program and be lamented. We need, parents need to take charge of their children's education. Other than that, we will not be doing anything good to ourselves. If you are saying that now, even at the PTA, now PTA, when the head teachers call for PTA, now it is not like the previous one. Because now even the parent, when you are advising parents to also support his or her ward, they will tell you, hey, there is order from above. We are not supposed to contribute anything. So even when the child is not having exercise book. So I am asking myself, if my ward is in prof school and my ward is not having textbooks, will prof sit down and watch me as a parent to allow my child to come to school without a textbook or exercise book? So the solution is not to sack teachers or head teachers, but it is about the time that all of us come together and support the education system. That is the way to go.
Hold for me. We'll soon be, drawing the curtains on the conversation, looking at two other aspects that I want us to, because I don't think I've heard from either one of you on the bit about school placement, some of the dynamics in there, and schools without desks as well. The very documentary that Dr. Peter Anti was referencing, Ghana's Schools of Shame. But before we get into that, to wrap the conversation, I'd like to find out from you, and you've started very well on that tangent, Reverend Owusu, the solutions, wider solutions to this problem of our ailing basic level. Because guess what? If the basic level does not produce quality students, then it will impact those who get to the secondary level and those who get into the tertiary level. I have friends at the tertiary level, at the secondary level, who tell us that the quality of students or pupils they are getting is very bad. That over the last few years, a lot of them come and you have to go through a whole lot just to get them to even match up to the classes in which they are. That, interestingly, is something that Professor Ade also mentioned, that for some, it may take an extra year just to get them up to par. So coming to you, Professor Oduro, what are the wider solutions, beyond what we've said here, what are the wider solutions to our basic educational conundrum, failure, that we ought to be addressing? Hello, Professor Owusu. Do we have Prof with us? We may have lost Prof. Dr. Anti.
Thank you very much for that. I think, yeah, can you get me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, hello, yeah.
Professor Owusu, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think there is one aspect we have to look at as a nation, as stakeholders. It is not for nothing's sake that promotions, you see, promotion to the next level was tied to some benchmarks. We need to revisit the issue of repeating pupils and provide remedial assistance to help them add value to their learning before they move on to the next stage. I think it is something we need to look at. The other one, it all boils down to what happens in the school as well. So I think I'll reiterate what my colleagues have already said, that we need to build the leadership for learning capacity of basic school heads, something that actually started somewhere in 2009, spearheaded by the IEPA, and currently is still ongoing. But it is not just a question of building their capacity, empowering them to perform. Let us not make heads ceremonial heads. I think this is what we need to do. Create supportive teaching environment for teachers, and they will surely perform.
Hold for me, Prof. Let me bring in, because I also want to take your take on those two last matters. But let me bring in Dr. Anti. Wider solutions. What would you proffer?
Basically, the challenge is a challenge of resources, and therefore we need the commitment of the central government to ensure that resources are channeled towards basic education. I remember you interviewed Professor Nim, and he told you that the literacy level in Ghana from age 6 and above stands around, I think, 7.9 million or so. And that is very, very problematic. It means that we are not getting the foundation of our education right. And as you rightly indicated, these are the same kids that move to the junior high school, to the senior high school, and enter various tertiary education institutions. So if you don't build the capacity of these kids in terms of their literacy and numeracy at the basic level, you are just pushing them through an education system, which technically is bound to not to give them the needed kind of understanding that or quality that they need. So we need to recommit to the providing the needed resources for our basic schools. I think that is the number one challenge of our educational system. If we do that, all other factors will fall in place. And I need to make a point about the parents too. I think parents should take responsibility of the education of their walls. I know that those who have the resources are now moving their kids from public schools to private schools and paying huge sums of money. We need to, those who are still having their walls in the public education system, we need a recommitment from their side. And they should establish that kind of relationship with the school and with the teachers and give the little that they can to the students so that they would also, those kids would also experience quality education as we move ahead. But the ultimate responsibility lies with the government, with the Ministry of Education and Ghana Education Service, so far as we continue to practice the centralized system. If we move to a decentralized system, then the actors changes, and we will see how various districts and how various headmasters will be able to transform their schools based on the resources that are being provided to them.
I have a message that comes through from one Kunke who says, interesting conversation you're having. What I see, the teachers don't have enough teaching and learning materials to effectively do their work. The ministry and GES seem not to have a grasp on what they want to do. Academic changes just like that. The teachers are not paid well. The classrooms are not conducive enough for both teaching and learning experience. And the system should be decentralized. Everyone is looking to Accra for materials. He also says, my organization has been working in the educational sector in Elmina for the past 3 years, and he goes on to talk about some of what they've done, reconstructing a 2-classroom block and all of that. Good job you're doing in the educational sector, Kunke. Thank you for the message. Reverend Owusu, you started already, but any wider solutions you think we should be looking at?
Yes. So, Benjamin, going forward, the provision of the resources is number one. Number two, parents should take key interest in their children's education, especially those in the public basic schools. Number three, the Ghana Education Service should be able to have frequent training and retraining for those in charge of supervision. You see, for only God knows the number of years that head teachers, GES, has called head teachers for a capacity building workshop. If there should be any workshop, it is not coming from the teacher unions. It is the individual teacher who is going to pay money to have a certain level of knowledge. When the labor law says that the employer, your duty is to train and retrain your staff. I don't remember the last time GES invited teachers or head teachers for a capacity building workshop. And then the school environment should be conducive for teaching and learning.
Right.
And if we're able to do this, I believe then we should also rekindle the SMC and the PTA to also take charge of the education system in Ghana.
Interesting point you make. To wrap the conversation, gentlemen, in some 30 seconds each, there's also the interesting case of school placement, the CSSPS as we have it, and the wide problems that it seems to be bringing each time. It appears now that this bit about sending students across the board also has challenges. We've heard recently about how people have to pay up to about 20,000 cedis, 8,000, 11,000, up to 20,000 cedis just to get placements into category A schools. Then there was also the interesting twist of the education minister's access being used to assign a student to a grade A school. What is your solution to this? How do we go about it? I mean, there are handlers of the handles and all of that, but how do we sanitize the system further? I'll start with you, Reverend Owusu, and then I'll move on to the others. 30 seconds each, and we wrap the conversation.
Well, Benjamin, I think this borders on law. And to me, I believe that the state security should take interest to unravel the matters confronting this issue. I think gone are the days that school placement were done by the secondary school headmasters. We accuse them that they go, they take in money, they do a lot of sort of things. So let us introduce computerized placement system. And today, computerized placement system too, we still have people who are doing their own thing. So that the state security should be interested and bring out the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so that it will serve as a guidance going forward for all of us. That is my take.
Reverend Owusu, thank you so much for joining the conversation. For you, Dr. Anti, what would be your solution in this regard?
There should be renewed commitment to ensuring that corruption in the education sector, especially in that area, is dealt with. So since we have had a lead, I think the appropriate authorities should take up this and then ensure that we bring it to an end, because the objective of the PSS have been defeated. And until we are able to get to the bottom of this and redesign the system to ensure that transparency, fairness, and equity is assured, we are not going to get the best out of the system.
Dr. Anti, it's been really good having you. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Let me take Professor Owusu to cap off. Professor Oduro, I beg your pardon, to cap off the conversation.
Oh, hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that we should revert to the practice where headmasters did admission, so that this will be done under the supervision of the Ghana Education Service. And then also, we should functionalize the operations of the Ghana Education Service. I find it a bit odd that the Minister of Education should be directly in control of school placement when Ghana Education Service is generated. So let's operationalize the functions of the Ghana Education Service. I think that will help solve the challenges that we have. With the Ghana Schools of Shame issue, I think I need to commend the producers. Once those things come up, we know in our context, is that you do not wash your dirty linen in public, and so that might be a concern. But then there's also the saying that if you do not sell your sickness, you never get the appropriate disease. So let's bring out the difficulties faced by disadvantaged schools so it will inform policy. To conclude, please let me reiterate that let's not make school heads ceremonial heads. Let's make them functional heads. Create supportive teaching environment for teachers, and they will surely perform.
Thank you so much, Professor Oduro, for joining the conversation. So we've had for this conversation on education at the basic level and all the pitfalls. Professor George Oduro, Professor of Educational Leadership, UNESCO Institute for Educational Planning and Administration, a former Pro-Vice Chancellor of the UCC. Dr. Peter Anti, Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies and a lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. And Reverend Isaac Owusu, NAT President. Well, we've heard what has been said now, but coming up next on the AM show, I'm sure you've heard by now, the Ghana Football Association has appointed Chris Hughton as the new head coach of the Black Stars, following extensive deliberations between the two parties. But what can we expect from a Chris Hughton-led Black Stars? Will they twinkle as we expect? That conversation up next with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. Do stay. We'll be back.
Good morning once again. The man right behind me is your new head coach for the Black Stars, Chris Hughton. After many months of media reports claiming that he was going to be handed the job to succeed Otto Addo, the Ghana Football Association officially confirmed that Chris Hughton, a former coach of Newcastle United, Norwich City, Brighton and Hove Albion, Nottingham Forest, would be in charge of the senior national team. And he's going to ensure that Ghana qualifies to the next edition of the African Cup of Nations and also the FIFA World Cup 2026. The contract duration, the Ghana Football Association is yet to officially announce. But what does Chris Hughton bring to the table as head coach of the Black Stars? Many have said he is the quote-unquote big name, apart from Evran Grant, to lead the national team since 2015. So joining me for this conversation, two coaches. One of them is joining via the phone, J.E. Sarpong and Laia Kingston. However, we had to have Laia Kingston join the conversation, but we can start with Coach J.E. Sarpong to share with us his thoughts on what Chris Hughton is bringing to the table. Good morning, Coach. How are you doing? We appreciate your time with us. A quick one. What does Chris Hughton bring to the table as head coach of the Black Stars? It appears we cannot get in touch with J. Sarpong yet, but as I mentioned, the Ghana Football Association decided that Chris Hughton is going to be the next man to oversee the technical affairs of the Black Stars. Chris, he had been the technical advisor of the Black Stars since March 2022, and he was part of the technical team that ensured that Ghana qualified to the World Cup 2022 in Qatar, a tournament Ghana exited at the group stages of that competition. And he was also in charge, he was also the technical advisor of the team that oversaw Ghana's participation in the FIFA World Cup. He will be working with Didi Dramani and George Boateng. Let's hear from Didi what kind of a man Chris Hughton is and what he brings to the table as head coach.
He's a complete person. A complete person with good experience, with huge maturity in terms of, so when I talk about huge maturity, then it means you know that his experience and his knowledge in the game both together makes him a more mature. And he's a human-centered person. You know, he connects people a lot. And a person who connects people a lot, you know, tells you that he's somebody who really stands out for development. I'll show you his pictures. He know he was here. He came here. I just told him, look, there's something good to come in our environment so that you understand what a right to dream is all about. And then he came. I sent for him. He came. And we spent the whole day here. He was flying out that very day. We spent time in my technical office to engage with my staff. We spent time to engage with the student fools. So what does it tell? It tells you that this person is a human-centered person. And in our environment, we need people who are human-centered people. People can easily, you know, get at, you know, at that level, you need people who connect and work, you know, so that you bring your experience to bear. And so completely he's a human-centered person who connects people around.
Well, that was Gigi Dramani, an assistant coach to Chris Hughton. They worked together between March and December 2022. They were together when Ghana played Nigeria 2 times to qualify to the FIFA World Cup. The first at the Baba Yara Sports Stadium, which ended in a 0-0 stalemate before a 1-1 draw at the Moshood Abiola Stadium in Abuja, where Ghana scored in that game. By virtue of scoring an away goal, the Black Stars were able to qualify for the World Cup that took place in Qatar. And they were together when Ghana participated in the World Cup in Qatar, winning just a game after 3 rounds of matches, and that victory came against South Korea. And Didi Dramani, there wouldn't be any person better placed to have an insight as to what Chris Hughton will be bringing to the table other than one man he's worked with. And he's spoken about how Chris Hughton is a human-centered person, and human-centered people are very good when it comes to building teams. And he feels that Chris Hughton will bring in a lot. His experience alone is enormous, and he expected that it's going to work. Let's go on the phone right now and speak to Mr. Sarpong. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello. Unfortunately, the phone has dropped, and would be getting him back to speak to us. But many of you you've been reacting on social media following the appointment of Chris Hughton as the head coach. There are some people who actually believe that it's just new wine in a different glass, or whichever way they put it. But there are also people who are actually very confident that Chris Hughton is going to do a very good job. Nana Ajiman is a football coach, and he'll be speaking to us as well about what Chris Hughton brings to the table. Nana, good morning.
Good morning, Mustafa. How are you, my brother?
I'm doing well. How are you too?
I'm also fine. Fine. They just caught me on the hop. I'm just coming from my morning workout.
So I can see because you look like as someone who just came up from a workout, isn't it?
Yeah. So my apologies to your viewers about that. I just stepped in.
Thank you very much. Talk to us briefly. Chris Hughton, what do you think he brings to the table as head coach of the Black Stars?
Well, he brings a wealth of experience. I mean, that cannot be denied. I think that technically he's very gifted. You look at the clubs that he's been at, he understands football. He's not someone who's going to subscribe to our jujunomics. He's looking on the technicality, the practicality, the pragmatism of the game. So I think he brings a lot. By and by, my only concern is that basically I think he will look more at foreign-based players because he has a greater understanding of how football is played internationally. Yes. And we're a bit limited here with our approach, with our attitude, and the way we play the game. So I think that he'll be focused a lot on those players who play abroad, because basically the mentality of him as a coach and those players will be round about the same. He'll not have to do any conversion as such in terms of their thinking. So I think he will more lean towards that. And perhaps if we get one or two exceptional players in the league who you can mentally mold and, give them a role and create a presence for them in the team that they can adapt to, I think, that will happen. But I think essentially years of experience, years of technical ability, and a position in which he knows players abroad and he knows their mentality abroad, and he'll be trying to build a different Black Stars that's built on technical knowledge, technical know-how, technical ability, the ability to read the game, understanding of the game, when to move, not to move, how to move. He'll be depending on players of that particular ilk, as opposed to our players.
But there are people who are actually of the opinion that, having been with the team for nearly a year now, he's someone who has a perfect picture of what the team can do and cannot do.
Yeah, it's true. To be honest with you, I was disappointed because this past year, because he's got way more experience than Otto Addo, Didi Dramani. I think even George doesn't come close. If you put all those three together, they don't come close. But I didn't see his handiwork in the team. I didn't see it at all. And
what were you expecting to see?
Well, a bit more cohesiveness, a bit more, pathology within the players and all that kind of. I didn't see it. I didn't see that technical ability. I still saw the team running around like headless chickens. Yeah, it's true. And I don't expect to see that when he takes the helm. And I thought that he could have, instilled some more of those technical competencies in the team, which Otto Addo couldn't, which Derek Boateng couldn't.
But Nana, you would have expected that as just a technical advisor, his role was just to advise the technical team and not to force them to accept whatever he says.
Well, you've got to put your foot down sometime, and if you see your team's not playing well, even as technical advisor, you've got to say so, and you've got to stamp your authority on the game, because at the end of the day, even though Otto Addo is the coach, he has to look up to Chris. It's not just a matter of Chris giving the advice and you saying, oh, well, I won't take that, and I won't do this. No, because overall, you can see the effect that it had on the team. And even more so when you're working with a coach who has said that even if he wins the World Cup, he's going. So his view of his job, the view of the work he has to do, and all those kind of things is not something that he's really focused on, because at the end of the day, he's going somewhere else. So I felt that Chris could have imposed himself a little bit more, because Chris should have got the job in the first place, let's face it.
So are you suggesting that the appointment of Chris Hughton has come a bit quite late?
No, it's not come a bit quietly. He should have been appointed in the first place. It's not come quietly, because the Honourable MP, Sam George, told us already.
Quite late.
Oh, quite late?
Yes.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Well, I mean, it's never too late. It's never too late. And we have a GFA that we've had for years that makes a number of mistakes, numerous mistakes, and never seems to learn from them. So, it's not late as such, but I would hope that, in selecting the players, that this man will tell us, this is the criteria I'm using for selection. That's always been one of my main beefs, so that we know the reason why the players are there. Unfortunately, Sam George believes that this is a man who can be manipulated. Yeah, and we'll live to see if that's true. I don't believe that's the case. I believe this is a man who's got his coaching integrity intact, and he will stand up to the interest of GFA executive members who want to put their players into the senior national team. I think he must have a contract that it is at least 3 years, minimum, must be 3 years. Anything else, we're joking. A 2-year contract, we're joking once again. Must be 3 years. It can even be 5 years, to be honest with you. If I had someone of that caliber, I'll just give him a 5-year contract. And
could that be the reason why the FA, they've not given us the duration, agreed with him yet? I don't know. It's based on the information available to us, is anything to go by. The FA were considering a 3-year contract as far back as March last year. So if they were considering maybe a 3-year contract, that would mean that he will be getting a longer contract more than the other coaches have had, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think.
But is that enough? 3 years is enough? Because CFL says it should be 5 years.
It's a minimum requirement. If he starts off with 3, that's a minimum requirement. It's certainly better than 2. But yes, ideally, give him 5 years. Let's work and build up the senior national team. And it's not just that. I think his experience and everything should be something that trickles down to the other senior national teams.
Okay.
Because he will be seeking to take players that have come up through the ranks, if they're that good enough. But in order to make them that good enough, then there has to be a program that permeates all the different stratas of the national teams. And I think that he has to be a part of that process.
Okay, Nana, thank you. Yeah, hang on there for me. Let me speak to Laye Kingston, who is joining us via phone. Laye, thank you very much for your time. You've heard the announcement of Chris Hughton as the next head coach of the Black Stars. What do you make of the decision of the GFA?
Thank you very much, Muftau, for this opportunity. And a very good morning to your cherished listeners. The appointment of Chris Hughton, for me, I think it's a very good one. The reason is, it looks like the technical team still continue their job. Because if I'm not mistaken, the two assistant coaches are still there.
Yes.
So that shows the consistency in the technical team. The only person that is not there is former head coach
Otto
Addo.
Yes.
So for me, I think GFA has done very well by maintaining the same technical people, or most of them that were with the squad in the World Cup. So that's solid. Chris Hughton is someone that have experience. He's been in the Premiership for a long time. Been around elite football environment for a long time. So he understands the modern football very, very well. So for me, where I'm sitting, I'm very, very happy that the GFA made that decision. The consistency is the key. The players know the backroom staff already, the technical team already, so nothing much will change. They understand what they are going to bring on board, and also the technical team, they will understand the players that are coming in. So I give thumbs up to the FA for making that decision.
What do you think Chris Hughton brings to the table as head coach of the Black Stars?
Like I said earlier on, experience. You know, we all know he's been with the Premiership for a long time.
Yes.
His experience as a coach have been amazing, and he understands the modern trend of football. You see, looking at Chris Hughton, he understands the principles and everything governing the game now. The former group, you can say, he acts as a technical director. He is not on the field that much.
Yes.
He stays back and advise, but different from someone that is on the pitch and delivering sessions, educating players, is different from a person staying at the top and then advising the coach there. So him being in charge now, I think he's going to, we cannot see, practically you can see what he has on board. And for me, the fact that he worked with top players before,
yes,
I think he understands the game and he will know what to do, and he will understand what Ghanaians need, or the current crop of players that are coming to play for the Black Stars will come and play for the Black Stars need. So that makes it easy for him, and then for the boys as players as well.
And this brings me to the point where many people have said that having been with the players and having had an understanding of what the dressing room is like, he is the perfect man to take up the job. But his appointment has come a bit quiet late. Do you subscribe to those who hold a certain opinion that the FA could have appointed him long ago, considering the fact that it was clear to them that Otto Addo was never going to continue as head coach of the Black Stars. And in fact, he never wanted to come in the first place.
Yeah, for me, whether it comes earlier or now, it's still the same. The good thing is, even when they appoint Otto Addo, he's still around the team. You know, yes, people can argue that he's supposed to come in, he's supposed to lead. But he was still around the technical team. So for me, I think nothing much has changed. But the only thing that has changed is now he is on the grass. He's on the grass more. That's the only thing that has changed. But I believe when Otto was there, Otto will listen to him in as much as he's not the one leading the sections, leading the meetings and all that. I think he's still around. So I don't think nothing much has changed. Whether they give it to him earlier or now, I think it's still the same. So let's all pray and then support him and respect the decision of the FA. Okay,
Lai, stay with me. But this question is for you and Nana Ajiman. Let me start with Nana here. Nana, what do you make of the decision of the FA to maintain George Boateng and Didi Dramana as the assistant coaches?
The consistency that's required anyway. So I think it's fair dues. George Boateng has good experience as well. Didi is coming, and I think that Didi's role will probably be to look out for local players, because he knows the local players and the local terrain more than George and Chris does. So I think it's all right. There's still consistency there throughout. They've all been working together, so it's consistent. My only issue is that, look, at the end of the day, as I said before, they must be autonomous. They must make the decisions themselves. They must not be influenced by management members who want to see their players in the team. They must pick the best players that can represent Ghana, and it must be based on a criteria. We should know what that criteria is so that we can also measure things up and see that things are going the way it should go if we are to make progress.
Let me come to Lai Kingston on this, and Nana just mentioned something quite interesting. Lai, you would recall that when you and I spoke on Prime Take, you talked about the criteria for selecting players to the national team, and that you would always be one person who will be very transparent with Ghanaians when it comes to the criteria you are going to use in selecting players for the national teams. Just how important would it be for Chris Hughton's technical team to make it known to everyone that this is the criteria we want to rely on selecting players to the national team?
Yeah, criteria is the word, and it depends on how or what type of players the coach, Chris Hughton, wants. Maybe it could be Chris Hughton have a different idea about how we see his players. Especially, let's break it down to positions. Maybe backline, midfield area, attacking players. Chris Hughton have a certain type of players that he believes can help him do something. So when we talk about criteria, it depends on the coach and the type of players he wants in particular position. I think that's the key word. We have to have, it shouldn't be like someone, one of the management members, because his player is this, even though if he cannot meet you, the coach, your criteria, you have to manage and then bring him in. And I believe Chris Hughton is a big man. He's been working around football for so much, and I believe the FA members have so much respect for him, and they believe what he can do. So I am pleading with them to make sure they give him all the right to try and use his ideas and his criteria in picking players to come and play for the national team. Because at the end of the day, we wanted to build a solid national team. We wanted to build a team that can give us results. That's all we're looking for. And if we have appointed someone, we have to have that belief in him. We have to believe in him, give it all the support that he will need to put us to wherever we wanted to be as a country. So for me, I believe the word is criteria.
The players
we have to respect him.
Yes.
Sorry to cut you. We have to respect him and then try to allow him to do his job with his management, with the technical team. Yeah.
The players you saw at the World Cup, do you foresee Chris Hughton maintaining the same crop of players or probably tweaking the team a bit?
I see him. I will speak for myself because I'm also a technical person.
Please do.
Chris Hughton have a different point, but if it's me, I believe I will still maintain at least 70% of the players that went to the World Cup.
Wow.
In the current squad.
That's a huge number.
Yes, 70%. The reason why I said that, if you look at the squad that we took to the World Cup, they are not bad at all. They are not bad at all. Because if you try to come in and then change totally everybody on the ground, I don't think you have a solid team. You go in, when you're building a team, you go in with the players that are there already and then try to bring in the quality ones that will come and then the regular players in the team competition. That's how you build a team. And then there is something called transition. You need to have a slow transition to build a team as well. So if you move, let's say 70% out and leave 30%, which means you are now coming to build the foundation from the scratch. And it will take longer. But if you maintain the same players, let's say the key players that the coach, coming in coach, you've seen the players and you know that, okay, that can help me achieve what I want. You maintain them and then try to bring in new ones that can strengthen the team. So if I'm in Chris Hughton's situation, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Mr. Ajiman, just come back pretty quick. Lai Kingston says that If he were in the position of Chris Hughton, he would maintain at least 70% of the players that went to the FIFA World Cup. Nana, if you are to, do you subscribe to that first? Like maintaining the 70%? Do you agree with that?
Lie is correct. I think 70% is a fair amount to maintain in order to build upon them as the core. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. I think he's correct. I think one of the issues that you've not touched that always causes a problem though is when the GFA say, "Oh, you must win the next AFCON. You must win the next this."
Nana, you are jumping the gun. I will come to that. I will come to that.
Anyway, Lie is correct. 70% is a fair percentage for one to maintain as the core of your team, and then you can look outside of that as who you would bring in to supplement that, create competition, because of course many of those 70% are like they're starters, aren't they really? That's what we're looking at. They would start, they're in the first 11. When you bring the other 30% there, that gives competition to certain key positions. And I think that you can build a team around the core with those other players who are now coming in supplementary to that, who one day too will become the core of the team.
Now tell me, the 30% of the players, which players would you fade out of the team?
Now you're being mischievous because if I start calling names, I'll not go through my working day because I'll get lambasted left and right. But there are some players that do have names that do need to be filtered out of the team. I'm not trying to retire anyone from football or anything like that. But for me, with a long-term vision, a 3-year vision, I would expect to achieve something at the end of 3 years. And I think that I can, but I don't think that I must rely on household names that are there already, who are still good, still formidable, but perhaps can't give me the 90 minutes that I want. And it's the 90 minutes that is crucial. I need everybody to be able to give me 90 minutes so that if I have cause and reason to substitute a player, it's probably because, they've had a knock. And so they can't continue at the pace that they were playing initially.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to name any names. Let's leave that down to Chris. I know who I'm talking about. And
you have the names in your head, isn't it?
Yes, of course I do. Every coach would. Every coach would. But let's leave that to Chris. Let's not put any undue pressure on him.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that if he doesn't follow the way I would go, the pressure will come on him. He will see that some players can't give him 100% of what he really is demanding. And in so doing, he will have to make those changes anyway if he's going to be successful. So, let's leave it to him.
Okay.
I know who should and who shouldn't be there. I'm a coach. I'm very aware technically, but let's leave it to Chris.
Should I mention one of the names for you, or I shouldn't?
No, you shouldn't.
Okay, I get it. So you stay there. Now let me get Lai Kinsey's thoughts on this one pretty quick. Lai, just how long do you think that if the FA hands to Chris Hughton, he would be able to achieve results with this team? What if you were Chris Hughton, what duration of contract do you think would be enough for you to succeed?
For me, I think a coach, every new coach that comes in, sometimes it will take longer, sometimes it will take shorter. It depends on the quality you already have in the team already.
Okay.
So for me, looking at the current crop of players that the national team have already,
yes,
looking at them, at least I did like 6 months to have confidence in my team.
Okay.
The reason being said that I have my philosophy. It's now that I have to introduce my philosophy either on the ball and off the ball situation with my boy. They have to get used to what I'm expecting from them.
Okay.
And I should also understand individually first, their qualities and positions that I believe they can help the team. They are individually first before I look at the coordination or collectively among each other first.
Okay.
So in my first 2, 3, 4 weeks, let's say a month, that introduction should have gone across already.
Okay.
Of course, it's not all of them that will take in information easy. Some of them it will take them time. So that gives me another month. But after 2 months, definitely I should make sure every one of my players understand that. And that's when the proper team building starts.
Okay.
That's when you bring in intensity. That's when you bring in aggression. That's when you bring in you let them understand there are situations that sometimes you need to calm down. Sometimes you have to raise the tempo of the game. So for me, I think within 3 months they should understand, and then the other 3 months it's we going in to look for results.
Okay, the Ghana FA, over the years, per what we've come to know them, anytime they are appointing a coach, one thing we hear is, go and win this tournament. Go and win that tournament. The first assignment for Chris Hilton will be happening on March 20, if the dates for the AFCON qualifiers are anything to go by. And that will be against Angola, likely to happen at the Cape Coast Sports Stadium. First things first, would it be mandatory for the Ghana FA to ask Chris Hilton to qualify us to the African Cup of Nations 2024? Do you think the FA should ask him to qualify us to the AFCON? Wouldn't that be putting pressure on him? Lai?
Yes, of course. Every coach, if you are going for appointment or someone is appointed, the person I've started, everyone is different. We find ourselves that this is our mentality. Ghanaians are football people. They love the game. So we find ourselves in a situation whereby Ghanaians want us to win trophy. So if you are coming in as a coach, that's what Ghanaians want. Let's say Real Madrid is signing a coach. Definitely they will give the coach an assignment that he has to go and win the league or win Champions League, because that's Real Madrid. Go to Madagascar, other countries. With them, they wanted to be part of it. They want to come and make impact. So that appointment will be different from a coach coming to coach Ghana, because Ghanaians, we want to go and have results. So it depends on you, the coach. You go in and you know what they want. If they put pressure, then you have to work towards that, because that's what the person that appoints you, that's what is demanding. Then you have to work towards that. So for me, I don't have anything to do. I don't see anything wrong about Ghanaians or the FA
asking him to go and win.
Asking every coach that comes in to go and win.
But
everybody will do the same.
But Lai, you coaches will always talk about consistency, right? And anytime Senegal chalks success, then we come back to the conversation of consistency. Someone like Aliou Cisse, he's been there since 2014, 2015, and through that consistency they had with the technical team, we saw the results they chalked, winning the African Cup of Nations. In fact, he qualified to the 2018 World Cup. He qualified to the 2019 AFCON and made it to the final, but lost the final to Algeria. Then the following AFCON, which took place in Cameroon, he was there to win it. He went to the World Cup. He made it to a round of 16. Consistency, because this is a man, many people actually believe that his ideas has moved for like 7 separate years with different kinds of players within the national team. Should Ghanaians not be patient with Chris Hilton and say that, okay, GFA, let's build something with Chris Hilton, so that we say in the next 5 years, we want to win the AFCON. Instead of just saying that, okay, AFCON 2024, Chris Hilton, go and win the AFCON for us.
Muftau, yeah, you are right. But all the records that you made about Aliou Cisse and Senegal, they go in and they perform well, even if they don't win. So trust me, if Ghana FA said, Lai, or any other person, I'm giving you this team, go and win. And you go in there, you perform very, very well. It's all about performance. It's all about you going into the tournament and making impact. Trust me, Ghanaians will be happy, if not 100% happy. At least they will be like, wow, the team did well. They were close to the cup. They made impact in the tournament. You see, but unlike you go in your first round or in the group stages, you are out. As for that one, definitely the people that employ you, they will not be happy. But if you go in like Senegal, you are putting up their records, their results.
Yeah, 2015. I remember 2015
through these 7 years.
Yes.
You can see they were close. They made impact. They were doing very well, but they were just not winning the trophy. But at the right time, they won it. So when you go in and you perform well, definitely Ghanaians will look at you and be like, okay, I think we are doing the right thing. Let's continue to do that.
Okay.
But if you go and you don't perform well, you are out of the competition. That's when Ghanaians will tell you, please, leave the job.
Thank you, Lai Kingston. Nana, please just wrap up for me within a minute. Would it be an overkill if the FA asked Chris Hughton to go and win the next AFCON 2024 in Côte d'Ivoire?
To qualify, no problem. Standard, Ghana should qualify every single time. But we always overkill by saying go and win it, and then we always come out to tell the public that, oh, we're going to win the World Cup, oh, we're going to win the AFCON. I think those days are over. We should stop that. It's tomfoolery. I want to also say a couple of other things. I think we've got to ensure this time round, because we talked a lot about criteria, and players that I would like to see come in is Painstill and Ashamiro. I've always been arguing for them, and there are a few more. But let me just touch back on what Lai said about, the 6 months thing he was talking about players understanding his philosophy and everything like that. I think in club football, that's the way forward. But this isn't club football, and he's going to need a longer time, because he's not going to be amongst those players as frequently as he would like to be, or as frequently as he would be if it was club football. I understand that philosophy, club football, but it doesn't actually apply in the same way when you're talking about national teams.
That's true.
You get very limited time to work with them and impart what it is you wish to impart to them. So that will take a longer time. And that's why I say 3 years is a minimum. 5 years should really be what Chris Hughton has on his contract. When I watched our performance in the last competition we played in, even though we came home, I was very much enthused by it. Okay. And I felt that the next AFCON, we could win it. But even if we don't, we must certainly win it within the next 5 years. Most certainly. If we maintain Chris, we maintain the technical team with him, we do not interfere. That is key. No interference whatsoever, because the Senegalese didn't come this far. Their management committee members were telling the coach what to do. He clearly ran the show himself. Yes. And he was very close to the line on getting fired on several occasions.
Yeah, many times.
Yes, and they just held out and just kept backing him. So if we ensure that there's no interference from those gurus who believe they are the coach, even though they've employed the coach, I think the future can be bright. If Chris utilizes a criteria that we can all understand technically, and what local people can understand, to say, well, yes, these are the best players that are being called, and players that also have form and not being denied, then for me, the future is bright.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nana. I appreciate your time. And thanks very much. Despite the short notice you were able to deliver for us. We appreciate you, as always. And Lai Kingston, thanks very much too for joining us via phone. That is how we wrap up the conversation here. Most of these things we've spoken about, you can head on to my Joy Online /sports, and you will hear the thoughts of these two gentlemen that joined us for the conversation on Chris Hughton's appointment as the next coach of the Black Stars. The GFA said the details of the agreement with him will be announced subsequently, and when they do, we'll be here to share them with you. Thanks very much for joining us. The show continues right after this.
And we're back. Mapito CBD, Benjamin Akakpo. If you like, Mapito CBD,
Benjamin Akakpo.
Benjamin Akakpo.
Yeah.
So the Black Stars, the team has a new coach, Chris Hughton.
Yeah.
Some had forecast that this was going to happen, but others have asked the question about how things are going to pan out under Chris Hughton. What are your expectations? I know you support Bafana Bafana.
I don't have any expectations really, because I'm not really aware of his works and his experience and his capabilities. So let's see what he does for the Black Stars.
He's done some work in the UK though, and people had even said that he should get the nod ahead of Otto Addo, but Otto Addo got the nod, said that after the World Cup, no matter what happened, he would, move on.
Yeah.
And he's done that. And now it's fallen to him, but some are questioning his abilities, whether he can actually, whether he is what the Black Stars need.
What are your expectations?
They are pretty low as of this point. Because I look at him, I've seen a few things about him, but hey, I'm no sporting expert, so I wouldn't, as far as coaching is concerned, I guess only time will tell. But for me, he's not an Hervé Renard or anything else, so I really don't know.
He's not a Pizzo Musumani. Yeah, okay. But let's see what people have to say about it on our Facebook page. What is the one piece of advice you would give Chris Hughton? Let's see what you guys had to say. Okay, Foster Paris says change the captain. John Wilson.
Okay, so they don't want Andre today.
Yeah. Okay. And also, with the World Cup, a lot of these comments were flowing.
Yeah.
So it seems like a lot of Ghanaians don't necessarily like the captain or want the captain
the
there.
Ayew brothers have got some flack, but it's a bit of a flip-flop sometimes, because the match against was it South Korea? They basically ensured that we won. Those crosses from Jordan Ayew and all of that. And for some, the energy that Andre Ayew brings, you can't take that away.
Yeah.
But let's take some more messages and then take that one caller.
All right. John Appiah says, not advice as such, but just a wish of nothing but the best. Congrats, coach.
Okay.
Mayor Lucas says, we can even go in for Jose Mourinho, but if we don't allow the coach to do the work on his own as a profession, says, and keep on with these Ghanaian back and forth coach controls. Trust me, every best coach in the world.
So that person is talking about manipulation in the footballing circles. Nana Ajay says, Mayor Mike, okay, you've said it all. He's referencing something else. Maybe this other one. Bible Frank says, the appointment isn't a problem, but the problem has got to do with the GFA officials and so-called football people. They shouldn't inject their corruption and pick and choose infections in him. Okay, we'll wrap it there with that comment. But we have Akonoba on the line. Mapito, would you like to take him?
Good morning, Akonoba. Morning.
Akonoba, are you there?
Do we have?
How are you guys?
We're well. How are you?
I'm also fine. Hey, my lady has started the Valentine already. Nice about it. And you too, your tie is nice.
Thank you.
Anyways, let me go on to the topic. You see, I want to greet the Chief Justice, as she then was, Sophia Kufu. She's a bold woman and she's the Yasanto of our time. And let me tell her that Gavi has no locus in this government. It's not the government official. So you, at times, some of media men, you raise a statement and you are trying to make him popular. It's not even a civil servant. So it's entitled to his opinion. You see, blaster. No, I mentioned it 3 times. My brother, you see, you've got to this stage before. My brother, we've got to this stage before. If they don't allegedly stop the unnecessary interference in the Black Star, you can never move forward. Because you cannot convince me, Akonoba, that when we went to the World Cup, Baba Rahman was better than Isahaku. Baba Rahman was better than the other players. You see, there are times they do make the things so clear and so palpably clear that you can see there's some alleged manipulation going on. So if they don't stop it, no matter the coach, Right. Akosapia was a very good coach. Otuatu was a very good coach. But the question is, will they allow Mr. Chris to work? That is the question, no. They're not allowing, because some of them are allegedly using the Black Star.
Akonaba, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Those are his thoughts on the Black Stars. I guess what resonates from there on Facebook and from here, this call is, will he be allowed to do his work?
Exactly.
And Baba Rahman and others coming into the picture once more. He did pass a comment about Gabi Otredako. I think I read a tweet from him. He has no locus in this government, but he is one whose voice carries in the government anyway. And we know that. And he's the president's cousin. So when he says some of these things, which are a swipe at someone, we might as well bring them up. But we're leaving our viewers, Mapito CBD, with Drive Safe for this Monday. A lot to talk about as we hope to drive safe and keep ourselves safe. It's been fun.
It's been fantastic.
And right after Drive Safe...
Tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So I'm just saying.
So you're buttering me up.
No, I'm just saying.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic, fantastic show. You know, you guys can join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're JoyNews on TV. After Drive Safe is Samuel Kojo Brace with News Desk. Enjoy.
This is Drive Safe with me, Benjamin Akakpo. Thank you for making the time. We start from knowing more about what to do on our roads and maybe even knowing what to say when drivers are losing their way. We're going to be falling on the Ghana Highway Code, among other tools, as we learn more about driving safe. Right before I tell you about my guest, though, for today, how about we find out how much you know? So you think you know. Well, watch this. Now, at the latter end of this segment, we're going to find out what exactly that road sign means. But without further ado, let me say hello to Mr. Cecil Gabra, who is actually the CEO of Top Tech Transport and Logistics. Mr. Gabra, thank you for joining us.
Very most welcome.
Right. So today we're going to be talking about a number of things from headlights, that is the types of headlights, the LI, the laws, the regulations, and reflectors, among others. When it comes to carnage on our roads, sometimes it also has to do with lights and how people use them. So let's start with the types of headlights.
Well, so whatever it is, the lights are part of the vehicles. And for every vehicle, you must not tamper with what the manufacturer has placed there.
Okay.
Right. If the manufacturer has placed lights, definitely it has been calculated by law. Your dim light must see up to 50 meters, and then your high beam must see up to 100 meters. So if you have adjusted it yourself, then it means that it will be either shut off, or it will see the floor, or it will go up. So lights are part of the car, and therefore you must not touch it. If you want to touch it, drive to every DVLA office. They have equipment to adjust your light so that they can see very well.
But why would people want to modify their lights in the first place?
Well, it is just like people who are fixing tinted glasses on their lights and fixing what we call balloon ties, just to beautify their vehicle. But for light issue, you must be very careful not to throw your lights to hurt anybody who is also driving or anybody who is walking. Now, the law says that don't tamper with your lights, don't add any lights to your vehicle. So you have two lights fitted on your vehicle. Okay, that is left and right, and you have it as dim or high. Some have got it as inbuilt, and others are separate, so you can see maybe 4 lights. One set, that's one pair, is the dim light, and then you can see another set of 2, which is high light.
Then underneath the bonnet, you have what we call the fog lights. These are the manufacturer's specifications. You may see other pickups with lights on top of their vehicles. Now, these lights are supposed to be fixed with regulations. That is, you have to take the permission from DVLA and then tell us what you want to use the lights for. If it's for farming, late farming, yes, you can put it on your vehicle, but you cannot use it practically on the highway. Okay, so that is not permitted. And that is what we see in this country. Now we have various types of lights, okay? We have the halogen, we have the xenon, and we have the LED, which is of late very common. You see a 4x4 driving and it's using an LED. It has been calibrated that it will not blind you when you are driving on the opposite side. However, the highlights are really powerful. Highlights are not supposed to be to be used to drive. Now, the law states categorically, if you look at the LI 2180 regulation 65, right? It is so clear to tell you what types of lights you can fix. Right now, so you don't fix lights where when you throw your lights, it will hurt somebody's eyes. I mean, let me put it that way.
And all of that depends on even the angle of the car, because sometimes people do it, but not intentionally.
Precisely. No, the ones that you see that causes problems is just so clear that people have their own intentions that, look, let me see well than everybody, and which is so wrong. If you are seeing well than everybody, then who else can also drive?
Right.
So it's a common mistake where people make by fixing extra lights and then also readjusting their lights. But if you look at the readjusting system, it is just so clear, like I said, 50 meters for dim lights and then 100 meters for high lights. That is it, nothing else. You cannot put on any additional lights to blind anybody who is using the road. And the law also states that as you are driving, you only drive with dim lights. Okay, so we say
at night.
At night, dip your lights when you are driving.
Because there's dawn, dawn driving leading into the early morning, and
Precisely.
There's night. So, dear friends, we're trying to save ourselves, to drive safe and stay alive. Today we've been learning about headlights, the different types, how many we need on our cars. But right before we wrap, so you think you know? Well, this is the road signal or the road sign that we showed you earlier. Do you think you know what it was? This actually is the answer. And so there you have it. This is another installment of Drive Safe with me, Benjamin Akakpo. I have been with CEO of Top Tech Transport and Logistics, Mr. Cecil Gabra, who's been gracious enough to have us come here and be with him. Don't forget to drive safe and stay alive. Thank you for watching.